Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this very important election forum. My name is Kristen Damone, and I'm the Executive Officer for the Canadian Home Builders Association. I would like to Thank you. I would like to extend a huge welcome to all of the candidates here with us tonight. Election time is always an exciting time here in our city and in our association. We are fortunate to have two other like-minded associations, the Urban Development Institute and the Lethbridge Construction Association, joining us this evening. The CHBA has a vested interest in the success of the City of Lethbridge, and we are committed to working collaboratively with City Council and City Administration on any issues that may arise in the future. As an industry that employs over 2,700 individuals, and invests over $192 million in wages back into the local economy, we are committed to the success of those who are elected as our new council. Before we begin, I would like to introduce the panel who will be asking the questions today. We have Angela Cornforth, our current board president from Overhead Door. Mike Schmittler from Lethbridge, Canada, our incoming president. Stefan Amundsen from Hutchinson's Acquisitions Corporation, and Bruce Galtz from Galco Homes, who are both past presidents and well-respected industry leaders. And finally, I would like to introduce Pat Sedlecki from Clear Sky Radio, our moderator for the evening, who will explain the format for us today.
Thank you, Kristen. The forum today is based upon finding out the candidates' opinions on issues affecting the residential construction industry. Now, the forum will be split into two separate areas, a question and answer period with the mayoral candidates, and that'll be followed by a question and answer period for the councillor candidates. The moderator, myself, is in control of the forum, and the timelines will be strictly enforced. At this forum, if time permits, at the end of the question and answer period, we'll ask questions from the floor as well. We'll be accepting written submissions only. If you have a question from the floor, please write it down, and once you are completed, you can raise your hand, and a runner will come and pick that up. After I'm finished explaining the format, each candidate will have 30 seconds to introduce themselves, and we will be going pretty much in alphabetical order from this side to this side. The mayoral portion will be conducted as follows. There are 3 questions that will be asked to each mayoral candidate. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question. And upon approaching the 30-second mark, a warning will be issued by the timer by holding up a green card. A yellow card will be issued at the 10-second mark. And then you'll be asked to please wrap up your remark at that point. And then a red card will be held up when your time is up, and I will cut you off. I promise you that. The moderator will then be calling for the next question from the panel. Mayoral candidates will have opportunity for 1 rebuttal each during the portion. You must hold up one of the blue rebuttal cards, and you'll be given 30 seconds to provide your rebuttal at that point. A 10-second warning will be given by a yellow card being shown. Mayoral candidates may rebut a maximum of 2 times, once during the mayoral portion and once during the candidate portion. Councillor candidates are not permitted to rebut during the mayoral debate. The councillor portion will be conducted as follows. Candidates will be asked a specific question from a panel member. Now, the candidates, which may be more than one, that the question is directed to, will be given 1 minute to answer the question. A 30-second warning will be issued by a green card being shown, and a 10-second warning will be shown by a yellow card. The red card will indicate your time is up, and candidates will be expected to answer in alphabetical order. All other candidates, including mayoral candidates, the question has not been directed to may provide rebuttals to that question. So to indicate your wish to comment, you can hold up one of your rebuttal cards, and you'll be given 30 seconds to provide your rebuttal when prompted by myself. A 10-second warning will be given by a yellow card being shown. Now, councillor candidates are given 2 rebuttal opportunities for the councillor portion. Mayoral candidates may rebut once during the councillor debate. If a candidate tries to formulate an additional rebuttal, it will be stopped abruptly by myself. Take no offense to this, folks. I'd like to run a tight ship, because we'll be here for hours if it's not. Let us begin the mayoral portion with the panel member asking the first question. Steph?
Okay, this question is for all of the mayoral candidates. We'll begin with Mr. Spearman. It's on now. Hello. Followed by Robert Jansen and Martin Heavyhead. As mayor, being an effective leader should be important to you. How do you or would you lead your fellow members of council? Chris, can you provide me an example of when you built consensus around an important issue? To Robert and Martin, how would you build consensus in the future?
Thank you very much. I think the mayor's job really is to be the leader and to move ideas forward. I think in terms of specifically issues related to development, I think I've been a leader in terms of encouraging a business approach at City Hall. We've met with the CHBA representatives and others on occasion when there are issues to discuss. We gave them heads up on things like the off-site levy discussions and things that came forward. And in terms of leading council forward, I think we're all getting educated at the same time, and it was a challenging learning experience to understand this industry, to be honest. But certainly when there were issues raised, we had special meetings, we discussed what those were, and then asked our administration for resolutions. So it's important to initiate those meetings, invite some of my council reps to come with me, and so we all understood the issue, and then ask administration to respond.
Thank you, Chris. Robert Jansen?
Okay. My name is Robert Jansen. It's the first time I'm running for mayor. Okay, for me, it's like being in kindergarten. So I can't, I'm not saying, I have to say that I hope that I make a good mayor. There might be more people here, more than are qualified for me. So I'm taking a big chance. Okay, and okay, I have other comments, but right now I'm thinking about what I'm saying. Thank you.
And Martin Heavyhead.
Okay. Ultimately, we'd work as a team in the most ideal sense as possible. In a municipality, the municipality has much more of an effect upon the daily lives of the people who live there than the federal government does, than the provincial government does. So as a council, ideally we would work together entirely as a team, a united front, because these are the lives of about 100,000 people that we have influence on, and that's a sacred thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Alrighty, our next question, Bruce.
This question is for all the mayoral candidates as well. We will begin with Robert Jensen, followed by Martin Heavyhead, and then Chris Spearman. Are you aware that the City of Lethbridge competes with the private sector in areas such as paving, underground utilities, and the NMAX food services? Would you support a mandatory review cycle to ensure taxpayers are receiving these services in the most effective way?
Yes, I would. Okay. I heard the rumor that, according to that, the private sector is not doing that good of a job. You know, the city has to still do a lot of okay. There are private disposal people that pick up the garbage, and there's I know for a fact they hire private snow removal people, and the city was doing this. Now, I'm not for sure, like I live in big cities, and they're saying that my daughter said that the cheap is not always the best.
Martin?
I'm sorry, but could you reread the question?
Sure. The questions are you aware that the City of Lethbridge competes with the private sector in areas such as paving, underground utilities, and the NMAX food services? And would you support a mandatory review cycle to ensure taxpayers are receiving these services in the most effective way?
Well, I would be supportive of it if it is something that's within the interests of the people. You know, if this is something that's just going to waste money by putting it into committee and then, having, weeks on it, it's not something that may be necessarily needed. However, you know, the city should not, I don't believe that the city should be competing with private industry, mainly because they're two different worlds. And the city should be enabling private industry as much as possible, but not interfering with what they're doing or really cutting into the main line. However, sometimes there's critical infrastructure that does need to be publicly responsible, the mayor and council being representatives of the people in that regard.
Thank you, Martin. Chris Spearman.
Well, I think it's an interesting question. Yes, there is competition in some areas. Paving is one that I'm very interested in because we contract out for paving ourselves at the city. So I'd like to explore what the issue is. It's not one that's been brought to me as a council, on council in the last 4-year terms. Here's a big issue for us. We need to resolve this. So as we've done with other issues, if it's an issue for members of this organization, we need to know, we need to get examples of when it's happening, and then we'll look at it and find out why it's happening.
Thank you, Chris. All right, next question from Mike.
Okay, this will be our final question for the mayoral candidates. We'll begin with Martin Heavyhead, followed by Mayor Spearman, and then Robert Jansen. When we studied similar-sized cities across Canada, we found that the city of Lethbridge has the second highest spending per person in Alberta and the third highest in Canada. At the same time, growth in wages and benefits right off the city's own website shows a $47 million increase between 2006 and 2015. That's an increase of 72% at the same time that the city's population only grew by 24%. So that's 3 times the rate of population growth. This is an important point for our industry because it impacts both residential and commercial property taxes that directly affect housing affordability and makes Lethbridge less competitive. If elected, what will you do to ensure that the city is fiscally responsible?
Martin?
Well, enabling small businesses to grow by, re-examining what we're doing with zoning, making zoning something more affordable and accessible to small startup businesses is definitely something that could be looked into, because the more small businesses that you have, the more tax generating revenue you have for the city. So if you're taking more money from businesses in taxes, then you're decreasing what you're taking, hopefully, from the public at large. I would like to, maybe after you could clarify what you mean spending per person, only because that was a little unclear to me. So I'll come back after. Thank you.
Chris Spearman.
Interesting statistics, because I'm familiar with the one since I was elected, which is the last 4 years. So I think since 2006 makes it a little bit unfair. I think in the last 4 years, we certainly haven't been growing the workforce at the city at a greater rate than the city's been growing. In fact, it's been growing at less than about 0.5% less than the city rate has. The city growth rate has been growing. So I think we put in more financial controls in the last 4 years than were previously. There are regular reviews, 3 regular financial reviews that didn't exist previously before this council. So I think we are scrutinizing the funds that are being spent. And if there's issues with competitiveness, today's the first time I've heard anybody complain about that.
And Robert Jansen.
Okay, I'm going to answer this in a different way. Okay. Before my wife and my daughter wrote out a form for my speech, I have my form. Okay, I was going to say if city council and all the mayors can take a pay cut by 5% or 2%, that will lower the tax. I mean, I know how much I'll be getting if I become mayor. That's a question I'm not going to answer. Okay, but. For me, I make a comment that some of the parking meters, the price should be lowered, and like for handicapped people should not get any. Okay, I was talking to people, like if I heard right that there's only how many taxpayers in Lethbridge, and so many business people. A lot of business people are from out of town, like Walmart and Safeway. They're really corporation out of the country. Okay. Now, if I understand,
Thank you, Mr. Jansen. Thank you, sir. Thank you. That concludes the mayoral portion. So now that conclude that, we're going to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves 30 seconds. We will start with you mayoral candidates, then we'll go into the councillor candidates, and then into the councillor portion of the forum. So Robert, you have 30 seconds to give us a little bit of a look-see on who you are.
Okay, my name is Robert Jansen. I came over from Germany. I was born in the Ukraine, and I came here as a teenager. I survived a child as a refugee in the Second World War. I came to Lethbridge. I turned 13 and worked on a farm, and I had different jobs like janitor job, security, construction job, and farm work.
Thank you. Chris?
My name's Chris Spearman. I'm the incumbent mayor. Before I was mayor, I worked for 38 years in the business sector. I was a founding member of the Industrial Association of Southern Alberta. Back in 1983, I was a founding member of Economic Development Lethbridge in 2003, and been involved in a number of community organizations as well. The Aboriginal Housing Society, the Rehabilitation Society of Southwestern Alberta. I'm a community-minded person, business-minded person, and enjoy public service as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And Martin Heavyhead.
I'm Martin Heavyhead. I'm a student at the University of Lethbridge right now. I study psychology, well, double majoring in psychology, philosophy, and a minor in political science. I recently made a video for YouTube elucidating maybe more platform points or what I'm all about. You could find that on YouTube under mayoral candidate Martin Heavyhead. Otherwise, I'd like to be your mayor. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with the councillor candidates, and then I'll kind of explain what the format's going to be for you councillor candidates in that portion. So we'll start with Aileen Burke.
Perfect. Thanks. So as was mentioned, my name is Aileen Burke, and I'm running for City Council. I'm currently completing my master's in homelessness and poverty here in the city. I stand for collaboration and communication and bringing a diverse voice to council. It's only by working together that we can really achieve what we're looking for in a thriving city.
Thank you, Aileen. Mark Campbell.
Thank you very much. My name is Mark Campbell. I'm afraid of Pat Sidlecki.
As you should be.
Yes. 43 years in media. Basically, I've had the great opportunity to meet and interview so many of you in various aspects of the industry. I believe I bring a sense of communication. Definitely, I am a person who believes in partnerships. That's what I want to continue to do as I continue with this campaign. Partnerships is a great form of leadership.
Thank you, Mark. Jeff Carlson.
Thanks, Pat. I'm Jeff Carlson. It's been my great honor to serve you as your councillor. My time is up from Steph. I'm asking for your continued support. I want you all to know how much I do value the home builders, LCA, UDI. These are the folks that truly do build our community as the best place to live, work, learn, and play. I've always listened to your concerns and been willing to work on your behalf. Cutting through red tape has always been a big priority of mine because time is money, it's jobs. It sometimes means the difference between success and failure. So please vote Carlson.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you. Jeffrey Kaufman.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Kaufman. It's been my pleasure to work with UDIs, CHBA, LCA over the past 2 terms. I'm honored that many of you have entrusted me to steward your issues through council. Members are certainly aware of the record of where my stance is on many of the issues that affect development and how I've been involved in many of those decisions. I do believe that council is entrusted with creating the environment with which we can all thrive individually and professionally, and I would work towards that for the next term if you so entrust me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Belinda?
My name is Belinda Croson, and I love buildings. As a local historian, of course, I love old buildings. But every old building was originally a new modern building. And if elected, I would like to work with all of you to build buildings that someone like me is fighting for 100 years from now.
Thank you, Belinda. Clint?
My name is Clint Germscheid, and I'm a father of 4. I'm a husband of 17 years. I'm a mechanic. I live in this community in all areas. I understand the buildings that you're building for us. I want you to vote for me and bring the blue collar into our council.
Thank you. Zachary?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Zachary Gibb. I'm a candidate for Lethbridge City Council. I've been employed at the Rio Canadian Superstore for the last 12 years, and I've lived in Lethbridge my entire life. I'm a candidate who believes in the last CIP and going forward with the plans in that, and I also believe in fiscal responsibility and councillor accountability by implementing a ward system and doing things right the first time, and that's what I'll bring to the table as your city councillor. Thank you all for coming, and have a great night. Thank you. Bill.
My name is Bill Ginther. I want to begin by saying thank you to you for inviting me and the rest of us. A special thanks to CHBA for organizing this event. My intention for running, or my platform, if you will, is based in large part on the work I do on a daily basis. I'm the executive director of the Lethbridge Soup Kitchen, so I come face to face with the poor every day, and so I have a real heart for homeless and for seniors, and basically I would like to represent this city as the city councilor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. Kevin.
Hello, my name is Kevin Layton. I have worked and volunteered in the nonprofit organizations for several years. I've lost count, there's been so many. I've been married to the most beautiful woman in the world for 26 years this month. And I'm a founding member of the Canadian Organization of Rare Disorders. Big holler out to Maureen if she's
Thank you very
able to
much.
watch.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll go back down to the end here. We'll start with Raymond. You can grab, you got a mic. Excellent. Go ahead.
I'm Raymond Hofarth, and I'm the candidate for change in this election. I believe that there needs to be change in City Hall in the way that they function. Too much business goes on behind closed doors. Too many decisions are made without true public consultation. I think that I'd like to bring back, and I'd like to work with the other city councillors to bring back, resuscitate debate within the council. And if I'm elected, I promise to bring your views into the chamber so that they can be debated.
Thank you, Raymond. Blaine Higgin.
Thank you, and thank you, CHBA, for holding this event. Thank you for CHBA and the UDI for being a hub for residential construction, news, events, and education throughout our community. My name is Blaine Hagan. I've been in Lethbridge for over 27 years. During that time, I've been lucky to own and operate various different businesses. I'm so grateful for the opportunity I've had over the past while to serve as your city councillor for the past 4 years and ask for your support in the upcoming election. And I'd ask for your vote on October 16th.
Thank you, Blaine. Liz?
Hi, my name's Liz Iwascu. I have a degree in political science from the University of Lethbridge. I'm a professional mediator. I'm presently on council, and I would like to continue to be on council because I love it, and I'm very good at it, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Shelby?
I'm Shelby McLeod. I'm originally from Tabor, and I've been here some 27 years. I've worked in government for many years and spent 10 years at the Alberta Legislature, where all the wonderful rules are made that govern the building association. I want to work with everyone in this community, especially the building community, and I have a social policy bent that I think every person deserves to have a room with a door, and if the bathroom's down the hall, that's okay. So I challenge the builders to support the homeless and finding them a home.
Thank you, Shelby. Joe?
Hi, my name's Joe Morrow. I've born and raised in Lethbridge, graduate of CCH and the University of Lethbridge. I seek your support, and hopefully you will elect me again to serve another term. As stewards of public trust, council and its institutions must be careful not to lose sight of the right of the public to be involved and to be fully informed. I use that as the basis for most of my decisions, and we need to make sure that that happens more than ever as we go into the next term of Lethbridge and the over 100,000 population.
Thank you, Joe. Dave?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Mikulak. I've lived in Lethbridge for the past 31 years. I have taught in this area for about 30 years, all grade 1 through undergrad university courses. Like everyone else that's running here, I'm here because I'm willing to volunteer service to the community and because I care about what's going to happen next as we go into this next great phase of growth in our community. And I hope I'll get your vote.
Thank you. Rob?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Miyashiro. I'm currently the Executive Director of the Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization. I had a 34-year career as a human services professional in the child welfare, mental health, disabilities, and senior sectors. One of the best things I think happened to me on council was Councillor Kaufman and Higgin and I helped start the Community Design Committee, which is a pretty unique way of looking at moving the community ahead. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Ross.
Hi, my name is Ross Morrell. I've lived in Lethbridge for 10 years. I'm a business owner in town, and I believe Lethbridge is a great city to raise a family in. However, I feel Lethbridge has become very expensive for the families, young professionals, senior citizens. My main goal is to deal with that issue and make Lethbridge more affordable for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Nick.
Thank you. My name is Nick Palladino. I was born and raised here. Many of the builders may know me from my role at Lethbridge County prior to my retirement 4 years ago. So you know I have an extensive background in local government and specifically public service. I believe the service part of this equation has been lost somewhat at City Hall. I understand the role of City Council and what the role should be of administration. I feel my skills would be a valuable asset to the future council. Thank you, and check out nickpalladino.com.
Thank you, Nick. Ryan.
Thank you very much. My name is Ryan Parker. I'm a 42-year-old proud father of 2 beautiful boys and married to my high school sweetheart. I've had the privilege of working with my current councilor for the past 4 years and with the community groups to accomplish many great things, such as the new ATB Recreation Center, Northside Legacy Park, of course, the approval of the new $360 million development at Cavendish Farms, and we worked with our partners. Once again, I ask for your continued trust in leading our community as we pass 100,000. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Harold?
Good evening. My name is Harold Paversoff, and I've been a resident of West Lethbridge for the last 30 years. I'm married for 43 years, and I retired recently from the federal government, where I worked with Customs and Excise Border Services as superintendent, and also with the Canada Revenue Agency in the area. I've worked internationally, locally, provincially, and nationally as a citizen advocate. I've worked with the United Nations. I've worked with petitions in the city, as you're probably well aware. I will continue to work on the inside out as your councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harold. John.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Pogorzelski. I am a small business owner, first-time home buyer, and more importantly, an active member in the community. I've been a part of a lot of community events, whether hosted, created, or volunteered. My platform runs on safe and inclusive neighborhoods, economic development, and the continued revitalization of downtown. I like to say I am a man of passion, I am a man of community, I am a man of action. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Louise.
Hi, my name is Louise Saloff. I feel I can bring to City Council as a newly retired registered social worker after 27 years in child protection. I have experience in a wide range of social issues, and I have worked with housing, homelessness, shelters. I have been on a lot of committees: Reconciliation Subcommittee, Event 150, Sisters in Spirit, Urban Aboriginal Council, Aboriginal Housing Society, the Soup Kitchen, the Métis Local, flag raising, museum storytelling. I have currently been doing Métis living history of my ancestors.
Thank you very much.
And I can build a sod.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you very much. All right, let's go back down behind Raymond to Joey Shackelford.
Hi, my name is Joey Shackelford, and I'm running for City Council. I was a high school teacher for 35 years. When I think of the home builders in the city, I hope I see financial stability in the housing market, fairness and equity from both sides, accountability for both parties, competitiveness and fair play, and a fair playing field for all the builders in town, and an openness to new and innovative ideas when it comes to home building in our city. I hope to hear from the panel their ideas as well.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you very much. Jennifer?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Takahashi. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Much of my platform is focused on social issues, and the Home Builders Association and the growth plays very heavily into that, not just in affordability, but creating a vibrant and livable city that is attractive to future investment and businesses. I very much look forward to supporting the work that you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bruce?
Thank you. My name is Bruce Thurber, and I'm running for City Council. I'm an engineer and have worked in this industry for over 25 years. I've worked in both the public and private sector, and I know the issues from both sides. If we want an even more progressive and inclusive communities going forward, I believe that Council needs to listen more effectively to CHBA and their partners to support their ideas and their innovation. I believe with the right Council members, we have an even greater success building our communities of tomorrow. For fiscal responsibility, true partnerships and transparency, vote Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Stephanie.
Hi, my name's Stephanie Watson. I'm a Master's of Science student at the University of Lethbridge in Environmental Sciences. I would like to acknowledge we are in traditional Blackfoot territory and give my respects to the past, present, and future generations of the Blackfoot people and the Métis people of Region 3. My platform is all about all-encompassing policies and planning that supports a sustainable future, sustainable in economics, environment, and social. I grew up in a family of tradespeople, and I'm developers, so I'm aware of many of the problems around building homes, and I look forward to listening to your concerns and answering your questions tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Davey.
Thank you to the CHBA and Lethbridge College for hosting this event this evening. My name is Davey Wiggers. It's truly an honor to be here with you. Question I'm asked most often is, why do I wish to be a councillor? The answer is, I wish to serve my community, to help shape and mold its policies to allow for prosperity and growth. Conscientious, thoughtful, empathetic, and patient. I love helping people, and I cannot think of a better way to accomplish that than through public service. For several decades, I was a business owner and contractor in Lethbridge, mostly in the communications industry.
Thank you, Davey. Thank you. Time is up, and Rena Wass obviously not here. So thank you all for the introduction, and I think on behalf of everyone at the CHBA, thank you for putting your names forward to run for council. Alrighty, so let's get to the councillor portion of this now. Questions will be directed to the councillor candidates. Please remember that each councillor candidate has only 2 rebuttals for this portion of the forum. Mayoral candidates have 1. If you would like to use your rebuttal, you must be acknowledged and asked by myself. Again, candidates will be given 1 minute to answer the question. A 30-second warning will be issued by a green card being shown, a 10-second warning will be shown by the yellow card, and a red card will indicate that your time is up. As Kristen told me earlier, it's like a traffic light. That's exactly what it is. So could I have the first question from the panel, and I believe Mike is up first.
Okay, so this question's for Raymond Hofarth, Dave Mikulak, Rob Miyashiru, and Joey Shackelford. Beginning with Raymond, what do you think is the biggest weakness in Lethbridge today, and how would you fix it?
Raymond.
I think our biggest challenge for going ahead is for City Hall, for councillors to rein in, if you want, to rein in the will of administration and make them subservient to the will of the people. I don't think that administration is evil. I think that they're a system that just prefers to do things the way that they've done, in the way that they've always done it. And they know how to get things done and be home by 4:30 so that they have time with their families. All that councillors can do is listen to the people and then walk in and say, listen, we need to make changes. And that gets in the way of the system doing what it always does. It's our job to be the fly in the ointment when it's necessary. It's our job, it's our responsibility to make sure that the voices of people are heard and that we work with administration who are the experts. We hired them to be the experts. We work with them to realize the goals that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Dave Mikulak.
Greatest weakness in Lethbridge. I would have to say that it's the plight of our at-risk populations that are our greatest community weakness at this point. There is a significant percentage of people who are homeless, who are addicted to substances, who are living in poverty in our community. And as folks who are fortunate enough to not be on that end of the scale, I think in our community we really need to address those issues in a way that is proactive and in a way that showcases that as a community we care and it matters. You look at the downtown, I believe that sometimes we don't treat the downtown like we would treat our schoolyards or our parks. And I think as a community, we need to start looking at it that way and cherishing that and starting to bring in, I don't know, initiatives that help.
Thank you, Dave. Rob Miyashiro.
Great, thank you. So one of the things that Dave mentioned is the opioid crisis that we're in right now, and that's North America wide, actually worldwide. That's something that we need to look at as a community. From the perspective of the builders, one of the things that we need to do for industry is to develop our technological infrastructure in the city. So we have horrible broadband connection in industrial and downtown, places where we actually need it. We need a fiber optic backbone running through the whole city, so we can attract better industry and different kinds of industry and cleaner industry and things that are going to keep our college university students here, and with high-paying jobs that are going to be here for the long run. That would be our biggest, from my perspective, the biggest shortfall right now.
Thank you, Rob. And Joey Shackelford.
Well, I think over the last couple of weeks, talking with people at forums and meet and greets, one of the biggest issues I think I've come across is maybe it's a public perception that when taxpayers want to talk with somebody from City Hall or administration, they often feel that they're being talked at rather than talked to. We're all taxpayers here, and we demand respect. And I think that public perception that maybe we just don't know that much, and don't worry, we can kind of run the city, and we'll let you know how things are going, is a kind of a constant theme I've heard in the last little bit, and it's important that we get over that.
All right, thank you, Joey. We do have one rebuttal, and I believe it's Mr. Perversov. You have 30 seconds, Harold.
Thank you. So this is why I'm here, ladies and gentlemen. The biggest concern I have is City Council that does not listen to its citizens, its residents. They don't listen from various polls, various submissions, petitions that are given to them. They simply don't listen. And I wish to be on the other side, so I will listen, hear, and advocate. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Any other rebuttals? Kevin Layton. You have 30 seconds, Kevin.
This will be my job all day, every day. There's no other job to pull me away from City Council to go running to. I am committed to this no matter how long it takes, including overtime. The phone rings, somebody needs to get a hold of me, they will be able to get a hold of me. Unless I'm in council with the rest of them doing what needs to get done, they want to get a hold of a councillor.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'm there.
Thank you very much. Ryan Parker. You have 30 seconds, Ryan.
I'm quite proud that we as a council have listened. I spoke about the Henderson Pool renewal, the approval of the new ATV Center, Northside Legacy Park. These are things that not what council wanted, it's what the community wanted, and we delivered. And one more thing I'm hearing loud and clear when I go door to door is the issue of transportation and the issue of a third bridge in our community. I've heard that loud and clear. How we're going to go about it, I do not know, but we have to accelerate the conversation regarding transportation issues in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Bill Gidler, you have 30 seconds.
I'd like to just respond.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not sure if I'm alive. Is it?
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to respond to something that's already been stated, and that is one of the biggest concerns I think we have in the city is the lack of affordable housing. And this directly affects the CHBA, and I think that what needs to happen is that we need to be aware and educate ourselves to the fact that there are up to 350 people, homeless people in our city at any given time. So that would be my really big concern. I think we need to address it.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else? Jeff Carlson, you have 30 seconds.
Thanks. It's hard to talk about a weakness in a city I love so much, but something that council has identified as a bit of a gap and we're currently working towards is creating and enabling neighborhood connections and gathering spaces. Spaces where members of our community in distinct neighborhoods can get together, get to know each other, creating and strengthening connections between people. Neighborhood centers, community gardens would be great in every neighborhood. Our neighborhood inclusion coordinator is working towards this, and I just want everyone to get involved
Thank
in
you,
their
Jeff.
neighborhood associations.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Blaine Higgin, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I couldn't help. I got to hop in there and tell Harold, like, gosh, you've got to work together as a group to get things done. When I look over the past, Harold, the last year we've got almost $1 billion of construction in our community. You're trashing the current council, and you've got to work together as a group. You can need 4 friends, and apparently if you keep acting this way, I don't know if you're going to have them.
Anyone else? All right, then we'll move to our next question. Bruce, you got the floor.
Thank you. This question is for Blaine Higgin, Nick Palladino, and Jennifer Takahashi. Beginning with Blaine, in your opinion, what are the biggest problems faced by businesses in Lethbridge today, and what would you do to help business with these issues?
I think the biggest issue that I face myself as a business owner is finding staff that's qualified staff to stay. Now, understanding that a business that I run is not something that a lot of people have as a long-term career, but finding qualified staff. So often we're having different graduates from the college, from the university, making their way out into the community, and there's nothing here for them to do. The qualification, we need to have those qualified staff or qualified individuals stay within our community so that we continue to thrive and build a better city.
Thank you, Blaine. Next up, Nick Palladino. Grab a mic there, Nick. Thanks.
Okay, I surveyed a few businesses downtown, and a lot of them talk about home occupation fees and the city dropping the fees and competing with the downtown businesses. So that's one issue that I think some of the smaller businesses have. Business tax always comes up, but I think the airport, for the larger businesses, I think the airport is an impediment because of the poor service that we're getting there. And if I get elected, I would make the airport one of my priorities.
Thank you, Nick. And Jennifer Takahashi.
Thank you. I agree with Blaine very much on the staffing issue. I think there's also kind of an attitude here in the city where it's easier to go to Walmart or cheaper to go to Walmart than it is to support your local businesses. And that's a major impact for my friends who own their stores and their restaurants here. But I think one of the biggest issues facing them is the lack of commercial space being available, being built, especially in conjunction with new neighborhood developments. That speaks to livability, it speaks to access, and it speaks to, just an environment that supports small businesses. 30 seconds. I got more time. Sorry. So, if we're not going to build that infrastructure in that allows companies to move in cheaply, even something like Andrew Hilton cannot afford to move into the new commercial spaces. And a lot of the time when we're looking at commercial development around a convention center or performing arts center, it's a matter of ensuring that there is commercial development there to support business.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any rebuttals to the last question? Jeff Carlson, alrighty.
Thanks, Pat. It's not really a rebuttal, but as I told Kristen, who's doing a great job and doesn't scare me as much as Pat, I do have a prior personal commitment I've got to attend to tonight that starts in 5 minutes. Folks, my professional relationship with you is very important, but my friends and family always come first. If you do have questions, you know where to find me. My door, my phone, my email's open. You can find me on Facebook, Steph. All the best, everyone. Have a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Jeff. Wonderful. Thank you. He's not trying to sell one of his rebuttals, are you? No, you've used them both.
I can find a way for...
I don't think there's anything against that, however. Alrighty, so we'll go to our next question, unless there's another rebuttal. Okay, Stephanie, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had to move it because it was...
You have 30 seconds, Stephanie.
Thanks. I'd just like to take the time to build on Jen's response about the commercial space needed for small businesses. There's seriously a lack of strip malls for the small businesses to move into and stuff. I come from Red Deer. My grandpa and great uncle developed a lot of the strip malls in Red Deer. And they always were a huge supporter of small businesses and the struggles with it. A lot of impediment is also with dealing with the city. There's runarounds, so I'd like to introduce like perhaps a small business liaison, if possible, within the city.
Thank you, Stephanie. Dave? Dave, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Hey, in doing this process, what's interesting is you get a lot of questions, and you don't have a lot of answers because you don't know the answers, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I want to learn. A question came to me just the other day. People came out of the ATV Center and said, is there no hotel on the west side? And I said, no, there isn't. Are there 40,000 people over here, a university, a major school, and these attractions? And I'm hoping that there can be some building that supports those infrastructure pieces. I think it'd be really important.
Thank you, Dave. Any other rebuttals before we move on to the next question? All righty, I see none. All right, Steph, you're up.
Time's up. Hi, Mom. This question is for Belinda, Clint, Liz, and Stephanie. Beginning with Belinda, what is your opinion on the way the current city council is operated?
All right, Belinda, you have 1 minute.
You do know I'm a city employee, right? This is putting me on the spot big time.
I did not know that. I didn't make the question. I'm just here reading.
I think the current council has a lack of vision, and I think there's some things that could be done. So I'd like to see some big thinking. I know they've done a lot of great things, but I would like to see a look far into 100 years into the future. Some of the plans are there, but I don't think we're looking at those big things. For example, we had somebody ask about supermarkets the other day. There is a study coming out of the States that within 25 years, half the American supermarkets could disappear because people are ordering food online, and so they think we're going to go to more Costco's and more neighborhood grocery stores, and that mid-size are going to disappear. So I think when we're looking, we have to look at some of those trends, and council has to be part of that.
Thank you, Belinda. Clint Grimshad.
First of all, I'd like to say that I thank our City Council for doing a wonderful job over the last 4 years. There are a few issues that possibly we might look at as a public-private partnership. Our city doesn't necessarily have to be competing with private companies, but be able to work with them in order to help develop those companies and therefore bring up our small business and bring in more tax dollars for us.
Thank you, Clint. Next up on the list is Liz Iwascu. You have 1 minute, Liz.
Okay, thank you very much. I actually agree with Clint that this council has done a really wonderful job. And I'm a member of it, and I will tell you that we have 9, counting the mayor, very different personalities. We often disagree, but I think because of that, we've done some amazing things. I think we work really hard at being accountable to the public, and every year that I've been on council, we've become better at interacting with the public and taking their feedback and trying to do what's necessary. The hotel thing, we cannot make businesses go where they don't want to go. I would love for there to be all sorts of things on the west side, but we have no control over that. But as a council, I think we've done a good job, and I think we will continue to do so.
Thank you, Liz. And Stephanie Watson.
Thank you for the question. I've been able to walk a really interesting pathway with my master's, in that I get to work with a lot of city people, as well as the councillors have seen me at their meetings and had emails from me as well on Lethbridge Transit, since that's my study area. And I would say where some of the communication breakdown appears to be is that information is not fully getting to the city councillors for whatever reason. I don't know what reason that might be, from the actual city workers who actually know what's happening. So we have some really great people that aren't being consulted in the proper master plan processes, and that needs to change. We need to be making sure that the voices can be made heard to council and not just through the union reps. There's breakdown in communication, I think, is what the major problem is within the city, and we really need to be working on that. Perhaps we need to look at communication training in all departments. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any rebuttals to the current question? Nick Palladino. You have 30 seconds, Nick.
Oh, thank you. I take issue with the fact that the city has no control over where business locate, but they do. They can do it with incentives like they did the downtown and got residential down there. They can also do it with restrictions by not approving hotels in areas where maybe they shouldn't be. I'm thinking of the 3 by the casino. I don't know if we needed 3 there. It put a hurt on the existing hotels. And maybe one of them could have been located on the west side.
Thank you, Nick. Anyone else? Alrighty, we'll move on to the next question. And Mike, you've got the mic again.
All right, this question's for Eileen Burke, Harold Perversoff, and Davey Wiggers. Beginning with Eileen, some critics feel that city administration has too much power and council should be more aggressive in providing direction and ensuring that that direction is acted upon. How would you answer these critics?
Aileen, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I think that's a very valid point. The whole point of City Council is to provide governance and good policy and to be the leaders for the administration to follow. If administration isn't following the vision or the leadership plan that City Council has adopted on behalf of its citizenry, then it's up to City Council to stand up to the administration and put them back in line with what the vision that has been adopted has been. And so it's only through strong governance and strong policies that we're able to adequately work with our administration.
Thank you, Aileen. Harold Perversoff.
Thank you. Administration and council has to have constant and complete dialogue communication. That communication has to be very transparent and has to have references and substantiated information that we can read, statistical data, basically everything that's clear so council can make a proper decision in all matters and direct administration, not have the dog wagging the tail.
Thank you, Harold. Davey Wiggers.
Thank you for that question. Ultimately, it's council that directs and governs the city and directs administration to implement the policies that it makes. If the perception out there in the public that the bureaucracy has too much power, that they're doing things without direction from council, then that perception needs to be done, and we can do that via communicating the council's direction more effectively to the public. Getting more influence over administration, ultimately the city manager directs administration where council directs the city manager. As it is, the city manager is retiring, and it'll be up to coming council to hire a new manager. Perhaps looking at one who focuses more on business as part of the hiring process would be an answer to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Davey. Rebuttals? Chris Bierman, it's your only rebuttal. You've got 30 seconds.
Well, when there were issues, we met with CHBA representatives and we discussed those issues. When one developer felt he was being discriminated against, I invited him into my office together with the planning people from the city, and we sorted it out. So, when there are issues like that, I'm prepared to intervene, and council is prepared to intervene as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Rob Miyashiro. 30 seconds, Rob.
Thanks for the question. So there's a real misconception that council drives the day-to-day activities of the city. And people need to realize that we have a professional staff that are experts in engineering and planning and accounting and culture and recreation. Council sets the big picture goals for their term through their strategic plan. The administration is expected to follow through with that with initiatives. We don't come up with great ideas every day for the administration to put out there because there'd be bedlam.
Thank you, Rob. Bruce Thurber, you have 30 seconds, Bruce.
Thank you. I see an opportunity. I see an opportunity for new council to inspire administration to be less risk adverse. I see an opportunity to inspire them to true partnerships and not be afraid to partner and have things that fail. I see an administration right now that is very risk adverse and afraid to take those chances. But I'd like to see an administration supported by council that steps out of the box, takes risks, and takes new opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Anyone else rebuttal on this question? Jeffrey Kaufman, you have 30 seconds.
Mike, can you please reread the question, though?
For sure. Some critics feel city administration has too much power and council should be more aggressive in providing direction and ensuring that that direction is acted upon. How would you answer those critics?
I would agree with them. You'll hear people say that we hire professionals or that we're part-time, but the Municipal Government Act does not give us a pass on good governance. Since about 2006, council has been actually enacting policies that have given away its power to senior administration. If councillors know its role, council will govern, and that's the greater challenge.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Anyone else on a rebuttal? John Pogorzelski. You have 30 seconds, John.
I'm not going to win over fans with our current council by saying this, but I think it needs to be said. We talk about good employees and the good people that we have in our city hall. And from my knowledge and talking to people in the community and social development department, there is a senior manager there who has been treating the staff unfairly. We've lost a lot of good people and will continue to do so as long as the person is still there. I think city council needs to listen to those voices being said and do something about that.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Alrighty, we will go on to the next question and back to Bruce.
Thanks. This question's for Jeff Kaufman, Shelby McLeod, Dave Michalak, and Bruce Thurber. And you might have heard this before. To Jeff Kaufman to start, are you aware that the City of Lethbridge competes with the private sector in areas such as paving underground utilities and NMEX food services? And would you support a mandatory review cycle to ensure taxpayers are receiving these services in the most effective way?
Jeff Kaufman, you've got 1 minute.
Thank you for the question, Bruce. Yes, actually, I've heard that criticism quite often. There are a couple of things that we should do. One of the things I'd like to propose to the new council is that there be an immediate examination of the services that city provides, starting with a comparison of the legislative versus the non-legislative. What are we mandated to do by the government, by the provincial government? And then it's in the list of the non-legislative that we can have the effective conversation around what is it that we're doing, what is it that we're about, what is our vision, what is our direction as a municipality. The second thing that can come from that is, as well, is an understanding by staff and council alike as to what are we been providing all of these years that maybe we don't realize we're still providing, or we're still, more importantly, still funding. In terms of the private service delivery, everything that we do needs to be done by business plan. We need to actually ensure that we've developed a model that deals with the efficiency and effectiveness of the limited resources that we have. If it's more efficient to deliver it privately, absolutely.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff. And next up, Shelby McLeod.
Well, Jeff, I think, captured everything, because really we need to understand what we are paying for. And I think that we need to meet, collaborate, and understand again. I'm going to say that word so many times, because if there truly is a way that we could contract out as a city council, or the administration says, yes, we're doing so many units for so many dollars, and we believe that, I'm going to pick on snow removal. The city of Calgary went to contracting out because it was more efficient and effective. And I think we have to have that discussion point so that we all understand, because sometimes things are said that may or may not be true. And it's up to administration to provide council and the mayor with the information, and then we can meet with the people who are concerned and resolve the issue.
Thank you, Shelby. Next on the list is Dave Michalak.
Right. Thanks.
You have 1 minute, Dave.
Yeah. I just went and looked at the survey that I filled out, and all of the councillors filled out, and one of the questions related to the idea of private versus public. The answer I wrote here says the city should not compete against local private business in this area, nor should it use their buying advantage. This is particularly with regard to land sale or commercial or building and residential activity to increase the value of land or the local businesses and developers. We want to attract business and entrepreneurship and not be in competition with it. That said, obviously, we're talking about different services. It's a case-by-case thing, I believe, and it really relates to what is needed in the community. And Jeff, again, hit it with regard to efficiency and cost. What it comes down to is having a council that listens and communicates well with the community. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. And finally on this question, I believe we have Bruce Thurber. Bruce, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Yes, like everybody that spoke before, I am absolutely in favor of reviewing every business unit and every service that is in direct competition or close to direct competition within the private sector. I look at paving, I look at concrete, sidewalk renewals, I look at concession at the MMAX, I look at some of our water utility and wastewater utility potentially. I think absolutely now is the time in this election under this new council potentially to go through it, make that a mandate through the next 4 years, walk through every business unit and get those answers and demonstrate, are we saving money by doing the service ourselves or should we privatize it and turn it out? My belief is that a number of those services should go out and we should get back to the business of being a public service provider and not being in direct competition to private industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Anyone willing to use a rebuttal on this question? Davey Wiggers? You've got 30 seconds, Davey.
Just as an example, I attended the I Love the 90s concert at the NMAX. It was a great party, it was a lot of fun, but I spent probably good half of the time standing in line waiting to buy a beer, or well, two. But the point is, half the concessions were closed. Why? No private business would ever, if they had the infrastructure, only open up half their means of doing business. It's run very inefficient, and as a public entity, that isn't a surprise. Private industry can always do it better.
Thanks, David. Anyone else? Alrighty, we'll move on to the next question. And Angela, who's been sitting in the corner here, just looking nice for the last hour, not talking, gets a chance to say something.
Thank you.
Angela, it's...
This question is for Joe Morrow, Rob Miyashiro, and Ryan Parker. The past 4 years, the Canadian Home Builders Association and its members have brought forward residential development and housing-related issues to council. Can you tell us one issue that you've been very passionate about and why?
Thank you. Well, I think I'm passionate to listen to just about anything that CHBA and your other groups bring forward to council, because we've heard it before, it's you and your industry that is the driving force and is the growth of our community. One of the things that I'm seeing more than anything that I answered in one of my questions, the biggest passion is we've always been led to believe that sometimes growing outwards is not the best thing, because with growth comes all kinds of costs that the taxpayer has to absorb, and we're getting a little bit deep into that. So we're trying to create infill, and what we're trying to do, I think, and I'm assuming council's doing a pretty good job at, is allowing some changes to the bylaws where you see some fantastic infill housing coming into older established neighborhoods, and that seems to be, for me, the biggest passion, and I would totally support that and be willing to work with your organization to create even more of that infill and rebuilding.
Thank you, Joe. And I believe we have Bill Ginther.
Rob Miyashiro.
Oh, Rob Miyashiro.
Sorry, we changed up.
All right.
You missed it.
They just throw me curveballs. All right, Rob, you've got 1 minute.
So one of the big things that I think council and the industry collaborated on was, first it was the Residential Zoning Review Committee. Councillor Kaufman, Councillor Hagan and myself and some industry wanted to make the processes for builders to be more streamlined. We had too many residential zonings. The industry went away and they developed a new zoning, one that we hope to roll out in due time to make a real innovative way of planning in the city. That was something that I think we've worked well with the building community, and that also morphed into our community design committee, which I think you're going to see some really good things come out of that group in the next, the next 6 to 8 months, hopefully.
All right, thank you, Rob. Ryan Parker.
Thank you very much for the question. I think the most important thing is opportunity. I've heard loud and clear that sometimes when the City of Lethbridge is in the land department or land business, that we sometimes may give special treatment. And I think that's a valid concern. And I think it's important that we make sure that both the private and the public land developers have equal opportunity to have the proper infrastructure in place. And I'm proud that the past council and the current council supported the Gary Station uplift station because that allowed for new development within the private sector on the west side. But it's also incumbent upon council to make sure that we have development opportunities across the whole city. And I'm glad to see areas such as Legacy Ridge, the south side, as well as the west side, have private opportunity. And I think that's very important because the city of Lethbridge does have a role in the land department, but to a smaller role. And at this time, we're at 20% of the land available in our community. And that's something that we have to strive for to make sure we're competitive, but more importantly, fair in our community.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, time for rebuttals. Liz Owascu, you've got 30 seconds, Liz.
I just want to mention that over the last 4 years, I think we've made tremendous progress when it comes to secondary suites. We realize that that's a huge part of affordable housing, is allowing secondary suites in as many areas as possible. It makes it possible for people to buy houses that wouldn't otherwise be able to do so, and I think that's a huge thing we've accomplished.
Thank you, Liz. Anyone else? Rebuttal? All righty. Let's move on to the next question, and back to Steph.
Liz, thank you for the intro to my question. This question is for Clint, Kevin, John, and Louise. You notice I don't say last names because I can't. Beginning with Clint, with a large student population and housing become less affordable, what is your opinion on basement and secondary suites?
All right, Clint Grimshad.
You
1
got
minute.
my last name right. Okay.
Well, so I'm in the pronunciation business, so I usually get it. So go ahead. You got 1 minute.
Okay, but they got the spelling wrong.
Oh, I don't spell apparently.
Anyways, my opinion there is actually I'm for secondary suites. I think that they, as mentioned earlier, will allow people to afford homes that otherwise couldn't. I know that it gives people who have less advantages financially, opportunities to gain a decent place to live. So it is definitely something that needs to be considered and done.
All right, thank you, Clint. Kevin Layton, you have 1 minute, Kevin.
Quick answer, totally in favor. Longer answer, as long as they are up to code. Sandy and I have lived in a couple that weren't, and hopefully they were destroyed. They were reported to the proper people. As long as they're up to code, no, the more the merrier.
All right, thank you, Kevin. John Pogrzelski, you have 1 minute, John.
Agree with Kevin there. Obviously, you want it up to code. I mean, you don't want to be putting somebody in a basement where there's a fire and there's no window for them to get out. That's very dangerous. I would also go further into that and just, we have to put it in certain neighborhoods. I know people that live in Riverstone and Copperwood that would be very against turning a house into just a moneymaker to bring students in. I know we have a student house right beside us. They tend to have a lot of parties. It doesn't really bother us too much because I'm still young and, you know, I might go knock on their door and join them. But there are other neighbors in my neighborhood who are very against having students in there. And we just have to really look at each individual neighborhood and how it's being used before we allow just everybody to put up a basement suite or a secondary suite.
John, thank you. And Louise Saloff.
Well, I think perhaps maybe we need to think outside of the box here. We have an aging senior population. We have students that need basements and secondary suites. Perhaps we could work together with some of our seniors to do a win-win, help them with tax breaks to to bring up the basements to code, and also make it so that the students would have affordable housing in exchange for perhaps snow shovel, garbage assistance with the seniors, maybe drive them to appointments and what have you. I know that as a senior myself, and with a husband that has some medical conditions, I could sure use some help there in different areas. So maybe we just need to be a little creative and think outside of the box.
Thank you, Louise. Anyone wishing to have a rebuttal? We've got several. We'll start with Ross Morell. Ross, you have 30 seconds.
I think apartment suites, basement suites, over the garage suites is a very good way to increase our properties that are available to bring prices in line, but I think we also need to look at higher density things such as townhouses, apartment complexes, apartment buildings. Those all need to be taken into consideration. And I think that's something that the city should very much be involved in and encouraging.
Thank you, Ross. Belinda Croson, you have 30 seconds, Belinda.
Yes, I think this is a bigger issue than just basement and secondary suites. It is about densification, and I think we can do some incredible adaptive reuse as we're doing downtown, taking underused buildings and adding residences. But we have a great opportunity throughout the warehouse district, or as the city likes to call it, the Upper East Side, it should be the warehouse district, but that's just my opinion, along 13th Street North. There's a lot of areas that we could get more density in and also have less infrastructure.
Thank you, Belinda. Jennifer Takahashi.
So I believe part of what we're looking at is mixed-use multifamily dwellings with a certain percentage confirmed to be available to low-income and ish. And then also we need to start talking about laneway housing, tiny homes, adjusting the bylaws and making the process easier for people to build and support affordable housing.
Thank you, Jen. Blaine, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Is this working?
It does, huh?
Okay. There's so much more to it than that. I'd love to have these suites in as many places we can put them. The problem is there's much more to it. There's parking. There's neighbors that may not like it. So part of this committee that Rob was talking about, that we sit on, this community design committee, is looking at other options, different ways that we can do this and put and get more housing into smaller areas and other options out there. Other than that, that's
Thank you, Blaine.
my time.
All right. It certainly is. Anyone else want to rebuttal? Bill Ginther, you have 30 seconds. Bill, that's your second and final rebuttal.
Thank you. I want to add a voice of agreement to what has been said mostly, that secondary suites should definitely be allowed, but they need to be designed in such a way that they create the least disruption to the neighborhood, in particular the accessibility in terms of parking, and that it doesn't cause a lot of problems in the neighborhood. It's also vitally important that the suites be well-built, accessible, and affordable.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else? Alrighty, we'll move on to our next question, and back to Angela.
This question is for Mark Campbell, Zachary Gibb, Shelby McLeod, and Ryan Parker. Beginning with Mark, how do you plan to work with an industry association like the Canadian Home Builders Association Lethbridge Region to make sure our concerns are being heard?
Okay, Mark, you've got 1 minute.
Okay. Again, I get back to communication, and that's something that in my travels, talking to a few people, that they've said, perhaps there is a lack of communication, and hopefully I can put some of those skills together. And let's just talk. Let's get together. Let's meet. Let's find out what the issues are. I'm not familiar with all of the committees that are currently available or that are happening right now, but again, it's all about talking. It's all about partnership. It's all about finding the right people who know the answers, and then finding a person who maybe thinks outside the box and says, well, let's get together and let's create a new box and find out that that's going to be the way to do something. So yeah, it's all about communication once again, and it's again all about the partnership and finding a commonality with everybody involved.
All right, thank you, Mark. Zachary Gibb, you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much for the question. It is the job of City Council to listen to the people and the organizations that bring up concerns and bring problems and ideas to Council. We all need to work together in order to make sure that concerns are met with solutions, and as a council, that is the responsibility. So whether it's the CHBA, whether it's a students' organization or otherwise, it is imperative that City Council listens and responds and offers solutions to problems that are brought up within the community. And continue to do that, and to reach out to these organizations and invite them in, and make sure that there's a consensus at all times when making decisions that are big picture or little picture or any kind of decisions that affect the community at large.
Thank you, Zachary. Let's go off now to Shelby McLeod. Shelby, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I think tonight we're learning quite a bit about communication, because obviously the home builders are asking us questions that they are maybe a little concerned about or really annoyed. So once we bring our new council together with our mayor, I think it's imperative that we have a closed-door meeting and listen to what you have to say. We need to hear what you think we can do better. And so, and then we go back to administration and say, where can we improve on whatever the regulatory process is, or where can we maybe get the province to lighten up if there is an impediment at the provincial level. So again, I'm going back to communication and understanding what your problems are, because without well-built homes and buildings in the community, we don't have a community, because you do the building.
All right, thank you, Shelby. And Ryan Parker. Ryan, you've got a minute.
Thank you. It's not what you have to do. It's actually what we are doing currently as members of City Council. Stefan, Bruce, Angela, I've taken upon myself to meet with you at any given time, and I know my colleagues have gotten together with you, not only just on ad hoc when issues come about, but we do meet. We talk about the issues facing our industry. Issues such as increase in interest rates, cut in the competition in the lending sector, mortgage rate stress tests. So those are the issues facing you folks, and we have to advocate on your behalf. I'm glad how far we have come. So it's not a matter of what we're going to do, it's what we have to continue to do. And if there's ways to improve it, I think all members around the council would be more than happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Any rebuttals? Joe Morrow. You have 30 seconds, Joe.
Thank you. About 10, 12 years ago, we had a report done by Mr. Cuff where it had about 156 recommendations. And out of that, the thing that sticks with me the most is the CIC, Communities Issues Meeting. I've always been an advocate and been pushing that we need to talk to you. We need to invite you to come to our CIC Mondays, which is the alternate Mondays from our council meeting. Because you've heard it loud and clear, communication solves all problems. We need to invite you. I don't like the meeting one-on-one or single. It's best when your board, you guys meet with us, and we need to utilize the CIC meetings that we have on Mondays.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else who would like to use a rebuttal?
Do I get a rebuttal?
You're on the panel, so I guess you can talk as much as you want. Speaking of Steph, you get the next one, Stefan.
This question is for Jen Takahashi, this question is for Jen Takahashi, Joe Mauro, Nick Palladino, and Harold Paraversif. Beginning with Joe, are you aware that every new home built in Lethbridge has approximately $30,000 to $40,000 in taxes imposed by many levels of government? Under new Provincial Municipal Government Act regulations, these taxes could potentially double to $60,000 to $80,000 per home. How do we protect the future homeowner from these increases? How do we ensure homes remain affordable in Lethbridge?
Wow.
All right, you got 1 minute, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
That's a tough question. I didn't realize that there was that much taxes involved in a home, but I'm sure there is, and I'm not surprised to hear that. I think, though, I'd like to know the breakdown of what is really the municipal portion of that $30,000 to $40,000 that you're suggesting is going to increase to $60,000. I think I need to turn it over to you. You are the builders. You are the ones that are facing this and deal with this on a day in, day out basis. My understanding is that there are a lot of taxes that you impose on your own builders as well. Things like I'm hearing, you can't have a single person build a home unless they pay the home warranty and all those sorts of things. So all that stuff adds up. Again, I'm thinking that we need to communicate, we need to be more aware of that, and if there's any lobbying that we need to do to the other levels of government, then that would be our role. But most importantly, I think we need to be clear and understand what those taxes are. If we're the cause of it, then we need to sit down and deal with it.
Thank you, Joe. Next up will be Jen Takahashi. Jen.
Thank you. So I had no idea. I have no way of knowing this. This isn't in my wheelhouse. I make really good Vietnamese food from scratch. So, I think a lot of it is when y'all get together with Joe to sit down and discuss this, I'd like to be a part of that. I'd like to listen to what we are responsible for, what we can campaign, both the provincial and the federal governments, to alleviate the situation on. And I look forward to the opportunity to getting to learn these things that I am completely unknowledgeable on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Next up is Nick Palladino. Nick, you got 1 minute.
Well, thank you. I think what you're talking about is off-site levies and not taxes, but levies tax, it's the same thing. Off-site levies are collected from developers to pay for utilities off the site, so transportation, large sewer and water lines, the sewage treatment plant itself. And it's collected from developers on a per hectare basis. And over the last 15 years, that levy went from $34,000 a hectare to about $250,000 a hectare, and that's unacceptable. And that's why you're getting $60,000 tacked on every lot before the home is even built.
Nick, and the last one on this one, I believe, is Harold Perversoff. Harold, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Death and taxes, right? With respect to the $30,000 that we're levying, potentially increasing to $60,000, that has the potential for taking home ownership completely out of the sphere of the residents. There must be some levies and taxation at the municipal level that can be looked at. Perhaps there has to be some incentives or some tax deferral measures that could be approached, because quite frankly, the 50% increase over the period of time would be detrimental to any prospect for house ownership exactly. And I'd prepared to study, research, and determine if there was any tax saving measures that could be applied.
Thank you, Harold.
So, Joe, I want to answer a bit because I don't want to leave the impression. Off-site levies are part of the tax. We also pay GST on top of that tax. The fee for Alberta Home Warranty is actually a government-imposed fee that we used to voluntarily do, and now it's imposed upon us. There are all sorts of other taxes that are layered in there, not just off-site levies. So I want to be sure that this is about starting the conversation about how tax has an impact, where that tax is charged. So if it's charged at the very beginning of the stream of development, it gets margined up each time the developer touches it, the home builder touches it, their input costs. If they were charged later in the cycle, they'd be greatly reduced. So we are fully supportive of paying our fair share of taxes to build the roads and the infrastructure communities need. We just don't want to be paying tax on top of tax on top of tax. And the GST was promised by our federal government to be indexed. So when a homeowner bought a home, the affordable range, they would rebate them GST. That is no longer in cities like Edmonton, Calgary, there is no rebate for the average home. It doesn't exist anymore. So those are the taxes I'm talking about.
Do you want to use your rebuttal still, Joe?
Well, I answered the question, so I was going to ask, can I use my rebuttal to?
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
They're in charge.
Well, thank you. And I mean,
All right.
and Nick was right. I was thinking the off-site levies, but I didn't want to go there. But you have to understand, I think from council's perspective, because I'm concerned about the off-site levies, and I was not aware of all these taxes. But we are always given the impression, led to believe that all of you, have great discussion with our city administration, and the recommendations that they bring forward are usually supported by you. So obviously, we need to talk, we need to utilize the CIC Mondays, and we need to do this at least 3 times a year so that we understand your issues and you understand what we're facing as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe. Joey Shackelford, you have 30 seconds, Joey.
Well, I think this is a perfect example of when principles meet reality. I was reading through the offsite levy bylaws and the principles the other day, and principle number 2 states, providing of offsite infrastructure will not create an advantage or penalty due to the time or location of the development. Thus, offsite levies should remain somewhat constant over time unless additional costs are added. Well, if Nick's stats are correct, from $35,000, 14 years ago.
Got to cut you off there, Joey. Sorry. Time is up. Any other rebuttals? Dave, you've got 30 seconds. This is your final rebuttal of the evening.
It is
Go
my
ahead.
final rebuttal. Hey, what I like about this conversation is the fact that I hear people say, I don't know. And what I've loved about the process for me is that I don't even know what I don't know. And I really love the fact that that's part of this job, is the communication aspect. And that's my wheelhouse. I communicate and collaborate extremely well. And so I'd look forward to maybe at the end of October after the election, being able to sit down and be part of that conversation.
All right, thank you, Dave. Anyone else? Aileen Burke. Aileen, you have 30 seconds. Mark will give you the microphone.
I was just going to yell at them.
Go ahead.
I just want to address the MGA portion of the change, and I just want to say, just because the MGA allows you to account for all of these extra fees doesn't mean we have to do that. And so this comes back to the communication piece where we can bring all the stakeholders to the table, have a conversation about how best we can mitigate these costs without fully exploiting what the MGA might allow us to do now.
Thank you, Aileen. Anyone else? Alrighty, we'll move on to our next question and back to Angela. Ange?
This question is for Bill Ginther, Blaine Higgin, Ross Morrell, and Louise Saloff. Beginning with Bill, bylaws and policies greatly affect residential development. Who do you think the stakeholders are in the residential development, and how should they be consulted?
Bill Ginther, you have 1 minute.
There are a number of stakeholders that we can identify. First of all, is the builders themselves are clearly stakeholders. They're doing the building. Secondly, you have the potential buyers. Those that will occupy the home will also be stakeholders. You also, if you want to expand that further, you get into suppliers, et cetera, and the city, of course, is a stakeholder in that. And so, just a bit of an aside to that, we've talked a lot about creating livable spaces. And there's lots of stakeholders there in the downtown core, as well as affordable housing for all. Again, there's a list of stakeholders. As important as these are, and all housing should be affordable, of equal importance is the growing, vibrant new communities that we see in our city. We need, as a council, to make every effort to ensure that we enhance opportunities and support the builders and developers to be successful. If we support continuous planned growth for our city, we need to do what we can to remove any obstacles that hinder further development. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. Blaine Higgin, you've got 1 minute.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Bylaws and policies greatly affect residential development. Who do you think the stakeholders are in the residential development, and how should they be consulted?
I think that was answered. The builders, the developers, these are the stakeholders that we obviously have to bring to the table and get a better understanding on where we both stand in the process. I think it's important that too often we've got city side being a stakeholder as well as being the property either purchased from the city or providing the land. The two different sides have to come together and work. Oh, is that done? Is that red?
No, you got 30 seconds there, Blaine.
All right, that about covers it anyways. I think the stakeholders are multiple.
Good. All right, Ross Morrell. Ross, you've got 1 minute.
Can you run the question again one more time? I know that's, sorry.
Bylaws and policies greatly affect residential development. Who do you think the stakeholders are in the residential development, and how should they be consulted?
I believe that between builders, developers, the trades, the home builders, the city of Lethbridge, there's a whole slew of stakeholders involved. And really, after listening, I'm new to this as well. This is my first go at this, and from what I can see, there needs to be some communication. I've listened to people say tonight here that they were unaware, they're unsure. It just sounds like there's not enough communication. So I think communication between all those groups would certainly be a benefit to Lethbridge.
Thank you, Ross. And finally on this question, before rebuttals, Louise Saloff. Louise, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. That is a good question. And, you know, I think I would have to gather more information to answer that appropriately and talk to a lot of people. But I do think that we need to be careful when we are doing residential development, that we're very careful of, that we're not sprawling. So that I know that we need to give support to, we need to ensure that there's transportation, emergency services. We have to be careful of that. I would think that that's something that we would have to gather some information. We would have to have more talks, and we would have to come to a good resolution so that we can sort this out.
Thank you, Louise. Anybody care to use a rebuttal? Alrighty. We'll move on to the next question. And next up, Mike, it's all you.
Well, you'll see that we're in the middle of the land development questions. There's only one more following this, so. So this question's for Bill Ginther, Rob Miyashiro, and Stephanie Watson. Beginning with Bill, the City of Lethbridge is heavily involved in residential land development, which competes directly with private enterprise. Should this practice continue, and why?
Bill Ginther, you've got 1 minute.
That might well be kind of a dangerous question to answer, but yes, I do understand that the city is involved, and I'm not certain that the city needs to be heavily involved in that. Obviously, the city is involved in land acquisition, sometimes at a lower price at an earlier stage, and they also take responsibility for the infrastructure services and so on, so that there needs to be some value to the initial price. So that, yes, the city is involved. Should they compete with the private industry? I don't think so. I think they can work in cooperation and collaboration with each other, and yes, that's it.
Thank you, Bill. Rob Miyashiro, you've got 1 minute.
One of the things that you have to look at with the city being involved in land development and real estate is that it provides an opportunity for some of the smaller builders to build in different developments. When you have a developer building in a certain area, they pick their builder group and they can build out. Sometimes the city, when they do their lot draws and they allow different groups to buy in or different builders, it can spread the wealth around, so to speak. Now, the other thing is, and this isn't a great answer, but it's an answer, is that the city derives a lot of money out of land development every year, and we would have to look at how could we replace those revenues that go into facilities and social development and community and recreational programs. How could we replace those dollars if we didn't do that? And we could, that's part of the discussion maybe that we could have with the building community.
Thank you, Rob. And last on this one is Stephanie Watson. You've got 1 minute, Steph.
Can I get the question repeated, please?
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
The City of Lethbridge is heavily involved in residential land development, which competes directly with private enterprise. Should this practice continue, and why?
I would not need to ask how heavily involved in what ways. I believe there's certain aspects that government does have to step in to protect the citizens and stuff. However, at the same time, we do need to make sure that we're not impeding enterprise as well. But we also need to make sure that we're protecting our small businesses from some of the larger businesses. Part of the issues that we're having, especially speaking as a new condo owner, is a lot of the larger businesses were taking shortcuts and stuff and building complexes that have caused the warranties to go into the longer areas, which now push out some of the smaller business developers because they can't afford to do the warranty programs. Being a person who had bought a townhouse and had to go through all these warranty processes and to deal with the issues that we had with our builders and stuff like that, I can see why they were implemented to protect. So it would depend, and that's such a green personality answer, but it really would depend based off of
That's it.
the
Thank you, Stephanie.
issues. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we have a couple rebuttals. Ryan Parker first. Ryan, you've got 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. Look, we should be in the land business for these reasons. We used the proceeds to build Legacy Park, $5.4 million. The Crossing Sports Field, $5.1 million. The new school development, $3.5 million. Vacant school development, $1.6 million. ATV Ice Arena, we contributed $1.4 million. Affordable housing, $1.1 million. Helen Schiller renovations, $1.1. If we didn't have those funds, it would be coming out of the tax base. That's the number one reason why we are in Lethbridge land, to provide these opportunities for these organizations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan. Next up, Liz Owasku. Liz, you've got 30 seconds.
Do I still have a rebuttal?
This is your last one.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to say that when I first heard the arguments about us being involved in land, I thought it was an unusual circumstance, but it turns out that almost every city in Alberta has a land department, and most of them to a far greater extent than we do. So I just wanted to make that point, that we are not unusual, and in fact, we have a smaller stake in it than most other cities in Alberta.
Thank you, Liz. Bruce Thurber. Bruce, this is your last of two. You got 30 seconds.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that should be, city and land development should absolutely be reviewed. Is there opportunity for the city to shift over to affordable and stay in industrial? But straight residential competition, I think, needs to be reviewed. And to rebut Ryan Parker, we have land assets, so we're not penniless if we get out of the business. We have assets, we have things we can leverage for funding of future opportunities and facilities. So we don't net to zero stepping back, but I think it's something that absolutely needs to be reviewed.
Thank you, Bruce. Nick Palladino. Nick, you are using your second?
Correct.
All right, go ahead, 30 seconds.
I agree with Bruce there. It needs to be reviewed. If I'm not mistaken, the city's the largest player in town, and they can influence the direction of growth, which is primarily the west side for them. Private developers are obligated to build parks as well, as Ryan mentioned. And I'm not sure what else they're going to compete with next, if it's going to be used cars or whatever, but they shouldn't be in competition with private developers.
Thank you, Nick. Joey Shackelford, yeah, you've got one more, Joey. Yep, go ahead, you've got 30 seconds.
I think one element that might be missing in this whole picture sometimes as well is the social element. I know they're in the land acquisition, but for the city to be able to promote affordable housing, mixed housing for First Nations people, for low-income people, et cetera, et cetera. We can't all live in Paradise Canyon or Riverstone, that type of thing. So, and part of the city's mandate, I think, has always been to have affordable housing in the city, and it has to continue.
Thank you, Joy. Appreciate it. Any other rebuttals to this? No one else? All right. We'll move on to our next question and back to the end there. And Angela, sorry. Go ahead, Ange.
This is the last question regarding land development. This question is for Aileen Burke, Liz Iwascu, Jennifer Takahashi, and Joey Shackelford. Beginning with Aileen, when the city is involved in business of land development and sets policies for land development, do you believe there is a conflict of interest? And if you do, what should be done about it?
All right, Aileen, you have 1 minute.
I'm not sure I have a 1 minute response to this, but I do believe that there's a conflict of interest. Agreeing with some of my colleagues here, I think a review definitely needs to be done to see how we can mitigate that conflict. If the city is going to be involved with land development, then there needs to be strict parameters around decision-making policies to remove that conflict.
Thank you, Aileen. Liz, you've got 1 minute.
No. That's my answer. The question is, do I believe it's a conflict of interest, and if so, why? I don't believe it's a conflict of interest, so I don't have anything else to say.
All right, straightforward. Jennifer Takahashi.
I feel it's dependent on the situation, whether it's an essential service or something, that's a benefit to the community. But when it comes to home development and things like that, it's definitely a conflict of interest.
Thanks, Jen. And Joey Shackelford, you have 1 minute, Joy.
Personally, I don't see it as an issue. I think there has to be fairness and equity on both sides of this issue, and a fair playing field for all the people involved in the land development. And I really like to believe in the city that there isn't a conflict of interest, and they're doing what's best for the citizens.
Thanks, Joy. All right, rebuttal time. Rob Miyashiro, this is your second of two. Go ahead, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think there is a conflict as long as the city plays by the same rules. Someone has to set some development policy and some guidelines around it, and I'm not sure if we want the industry to do that so much. Not that you guys wouldn't do a great job at it, but I'm pretty sure that'd be our role, not yours. I think it's really important to note that the city is the overarching authority in this, and as long as we're playing by the same rules, I think it should be okay.
Thank you, Rob. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to the next question. Back over to Bruce Galtz.
Am I on? Thank you. This question is for Belinda, Raymond, Ross, and Davey. Beginning with Belinda, how would you as a city council member support major development projects like Exhibition Park, a convention center, or a performing arts center that promote the growth of the city of Lethbridge?
All right, Belinda, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
How would we promote those? Well, advocacy for them if it's something we think that's important. We also would have to help them find the money because we're not going to build something unless the money is there. So that may be working with other levels of government. That may be helping them find grants. And so we have those two roles. We advocating for the projects, promoting the projects, and working with them to find the money. And only when there's the community need and you have the money, then you go ahead.
Thank you, Belinda. Raymond. You have 1 minute, Raymond.
Thank you. Well, the question sort of assumed the answer in that you said that those will lead to growth. You want anybody here on this side to say that we're against growth? I don't think that's going to happen. The issue for me is needs to be more clearly addressed is what are those benefits and can you make real assumptions about what they're going to be around. The decision to build any of those major projects belong to the people, that belongs to the public. And if they want, and if the public says we think that it's worth it and we think it's worthwhile going in debt, then that is the role of City Council to make those things, to come to our administration, to come to you and say, let's make this thing work. That is, again, our role. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Ross has stepped out, so we will go to Davey. 1 minute, Dave.
Is that me or Davey?
Davey Wiggers.
Davey Wiggers.
Yeah.
Thank you again for the question. Ultimately, as our current mayor is fond of saying, these capital projects are all well and good, but we have to have the money in order to be able to develop them, and we can do that maybe one every 10 years individually. If we get creative, looking at public-private partnerships or, as Belinda was mentioning, finding grants or speaking to other levels of government, and we can make it happen, then great. The one thing that we need to be cognizant of is how will this affect the city best? To triage, basically, what is most important. Do we have possibilities for contractors, operators, ways to make it pay for itself? Do we go into debt in order to achieve that goal and get the funding back?
All right, thank you, Davey.
Thank you.
All right, rebuttals? Anyone willing to rebut onto this? Oh, Ross is back. Nice to have you back, Ross.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. The question is, how would you as a city council member support major development projects like Exhibition Park, Convention Center, or Performing Arts Center that promote the growth of the city of Lethbridge? You have 1 minute.
I think those projects are very important to our growth as a community. We need attractions. We need exhibition halls for events to come here. We are the third largest city in Alberta, and there's so much more we could have coming here, which would equal opportunity growth. And I really feel that those are all areas that we need to dig into and work towards a solution.
Thank you, Ross. Anyone on a rebuttal? Zachary Gibb?
Yes, thank you.
30 seconds, Zach.
As City Council, we do have to find solutions and funding for projects like this. There's a lot of big ticket projects in the pipeline for Lethbridge to help us become a more vibrant and a better place to do business. We need to make smarter initial investments when planning these things and reach out to community groups and advocate and lobby to our provincial and federal partners to find the funding for these projects and to keep the cost of the taxpayers low. And by doing these things, we will be able to secure the funding in order to see them to completion. And it is important for our community in order to grow.
That's it. Thank you, Zach. Anyone else on a rebuttal? Alrighty, let's move on to our next question and back over to Steph.
This question is for Zachary, Kevin, and John. Beginning with Zachary, we want a vibrant, livable, affordable, connected city with a business environment that is competitive and will attract migration. I want to step in and say our city council has done an excellent job of this in the past 4 years. How would you encourage and attract new business?
I agree. I agree that current city council has done a very good job in doing this, and I commit to following the good work that they do as your city councillor. With projects like the Performing Arts Centre and things like the Third Bridge to better connect our city, that just makes us an even better place to go and to do commerce and to attract people. Immigration in our city is just booming. People are coming here with projects like Cavendish Farms and huge corporations coming into town, as well as the small businesses that are attracted to Lethbridge. That's a recipe for even more immigration and even more an even more thriving community, and we want to do everything we can to afford these options to businesses big and small in order to continue to attract them to our city. Lethbridge has so much to offer already, but we have so much potential, and we want to look to the Lethbridge of 30 years, 40 years, 50 years down the line and make sure that that future is secure and that we have all of these options available now and the proper infrastructure in place in order to make sure that they're taken care of and that they continue to come into our city and continue on with the great growth that has happened.
All right, thank you, Zach. Kevin Layton. Kevin, you have 1 minute.
When we look at attracting new business in the city, we don't just need to look at new business coming in, we need to look at new business within the city. So much, everywhere we look, it's like big box, big box, big box. What about small businesses? What about people within the city that want to get their own businesses going? What about the small businesses that want to get started? Where are they? How are they going to get started? What about getting them going? And how are they going to get started if all the big box businesses coming in are just going to crush them and smash them down to the ground before they even get a start? We need to give the citizens of Lethbridge a chance to grow and flourish as well.
Thank you, Kevin. And John Pogorzelski. John, you've got a minute.
I feel the heart of any city lies in the downtown. There's a lot of revitalization we can do in the downtown. There's a lot of buildings that are sitting empty in there that we can have businesses come in today if they were available, if they were properly stationed. I walk by a lot of these buildings and they're just not usable right now, and I don't know why they're not usable. I don't know the context behind that, but starting with our downtown, we need to rebuild out. Secondly, we have to look at our students and promote entrepreneurship in our city. There's a lot of students that we lose that are talented individuals. They go to bigger centers just because they feel that there's no opportunity here in Lethbridge. And how do we provide that opportunity? Well, by creating the convention center, by creating the Performing Arts Center. The more we build, the better it's going to be for attracting our young students. And finally, in regards to immigration, working with CMAR, the Coalition of Municipalities Against Racism and Discrimination, to allow immigrants to have an opportunity to find grants and start their own businesses that could bring a unique culture to Lethbridge. Thanks.
Thank you, John. All right, anybody want to throw a rebuttal in there? Mark Campbell. Mark, you've got 30 seconds.
It's just a kind of a thought, when you're creating an opportunity for perhaps a CEO who wants to come to Lethbridge. A lot of times that CEO will say, well, what's in it for my spouse or my kids? So maybe, focus in on what the spouse wants to do and what the kids want to do. Just another added incentive as to yes or no for Lethbridge.
Thank you, Mark. Stephanie, you got 1 minute, 30 seconds, and that is your final rebuttal.
As much as we like to talk about growth, we also have to consider our environmental constraints. We do live in a semi-arid area. The water basins in southern Alberta are closed, so we only have so much water in our water licenses for the city. So we do have to consider our growth plans in that regard and look at more sustainable options than perhaps we have done in the past.
All righty. Anyone else? Belinda?
I think I should talk to Mike.
This is your final rebuttal, Belinda.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think to encourage and attract new business, we need to seriously look at the airport. Today, a community such as ours needs a very strong airport. And we need to look at making sure that we are competitive with regards to cost of doing business here, with the regulations that we have here, and do we have the tech infrastructure? Do we have what the new communities or new businesses need in technology?
Thank you, Belinda. Clint, you got 30 seconds.
I'd like to reiterate the airport. I'd also like to mention that Lethbridge does have highways connecting us northeast, west, and south with 2, 3, 4, 5. I also would like to mention that we have a university and a college here that could be tied in quite nicely with the private sector in developing business and possibly technology.
Thank you, Clint. Anyone else? Shelby, go ahead. You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I think we're actually at a crossroads. The community is wanting something more, by and large, but I think we need to come together and say, what do you want to pay for? Some of the seniors who speak to me, they're really afraid that they'll be priced out of the marketplace. They want to stay in their home. So I really believe that we have to come together in a forum much like this so people know if we are going to build it, what it will cost, and if there's funding, great. And if not, we need to think hard about it.
Thank you, Shelby. Anyone else? All right, let's go to the next question. We're getting down to the last little bit here. So I believe actually this is the final question from the panel.
This is the final question.
All right, it's all yours, Mike.
Thanks, Pat. So we thought we'd give the councillor candidates a crack at the same question we asked the mayoralty candidates. So the question's for Mark Campbell, Jeffrey Kaufman, Ryan Parker, and Bruce Thurber. So beginning with Mark, when we studied similar-sized cities across Canada, we found that the city of Lethbridge has the second highest spending per person in Alberta and the third highest in Canada. Growth in wages and benefits from the city's own website shows a $47 million increase between 06 and 15. That's an increase of 72%, while the city's population only grew by 24%. So that means wages and benefits have grown 3 times the rate of population growth. This is important to our industry because it impacts both residential and commercial property taxes, and that greatly affects housing affordability and makes Lethbridge less competitive. If elected, what would you do to ensure that the city is fiscally responsible?
Well, again, it's one of those situations where I would have to find the people who know the answer to those questions and create communication, talk to them, find out what it is that we need to work on, and that's vital to the question. So once again, I hate to keep on harping back on this, but this is and since again that I'm a relatively newcomer to this sort of endeavor, I just need to talk to the people that really know what's going on and what they can bring to the table and discuss it, bring it together, and find solutions and answers to those very difficult questions.
Thanks, Mark. Jeffrey Kaufman, you've got 1 minute there, Jeff. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the question. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things that the next council should do is sit and do the examination of the services, the legislated versus non-legislated, because I do believe out of that we will be able to go through and assess what we're doing, ask the question why we're doing it, and address that aspect of it. The second thing about doing that as well, of course, is that it will give us purpose, a sense of purpose, because I'm not necessarily certain we understand our purpose as a local government within the municipality. The responsibility of council is to create the environment in which we can grow, in which we can all thrive and survive. And part of that comes from our understanding of our legislative role and our purpose. It really is about council stepping up and stepping forward and taking control of a very large organization and saying yes or saying no to certain directions. Business plans, accountability plans, follow-up, all of these things are important in the conversation, and it's essential that council understands why it's there and make sure that these mechanisms are in place to deal with the issues as they come up.
Thank you, Jeff. And let's go to Ryan Parker next. You have a minute, Ryan.
Can you please repeat the question?
It's the longest question in the evening, so I'm happy to do that.
That's why I want you to repeat it.
When we studied similar-sized cities across Canada, we found that the city of Lethbridge has the second highest spending per person in Alberta and the third highest in Canada. Growth in wages and benefits from the city's own website shows a $47 million increase between 2006 and 2015. That's an increase of 72%, while the city's population only grew by 24%. So basically 3 times the rate of population growth. This is important to our industry because it impacts both residential and commercial property taxes. That directly affects housing affordability and makes Lethbridge less competitive. If elected, what will you do to ensure that the city is fiscally responsible?
Ladies and gentlemen, it costs $345 million to run this city on an annual basis. We have 1,460 employees that work for this corporation. You're stating some stats here and some facts that I actually would probably differ on that. Here's the issue in our community. We always compare residential taxes to Calgary. We're talking the residential taxes. In Lethbridge, we do have a fundamental flaw in our taxation that our mill rate is not competitive to Calgary, but our business mill rate is very, very competitive to Calgary. In our community, the homeowners do subsidize the business owners. In Calgary, the business owners subsidize the homeowners. We could easily say we're going to cut staff, we're going to cut wages, but this is the fundamental problem facing our community. Do we shift the burden? We have $345 million needed. Who pays? That's the question.
And just to be clear, the study that we did was not just against Calgary. It was 20 municipalities across the country. Calgary was only a benchmark. But what we tried to do was find cities that were the same size as Lethbridge or similar size and regional centers, so that we tried to make it as close to comparison to Lethbridge as possible. So I just wanted to clarify that. It was Nichols Management actually that did the study for us.
I appreciate that, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it after. I'd like to see those stats as well.
You bet.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, Bruce.
Thank you.
1 minute.
Great, thank you for that question. Fiscal responsibility. Internally, we need to look through the corporation for efficiencies and opportunities. Like we discussed earlier, opportunities for sourcing out to the private sector for tax savings. I mean, ultimately, this goes to lowering taxes. Also, as we spend externally on CIP and in my platform, and I've talked about this a number of times, when we build things, when we build roads and road extensions and extensions to services, what are we spending and what's the need? Are we buying what we want and all the bells and whistles, or are we spending just enough money at just the right time to manage that? So I see just tons of opportunity to look through the corporation and get some efficiencies, take advantage of some opportunities. So I'd really like to see that in the next 4 years in this council. Do some of that and start looking at reducing taxes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Anybody wanting to use a rebuttal? Davey Wiggers, you got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
A couple questions coming up with the stats. You say that we're the second. Who was the first? And also, does that 47 million or 49 million include the rate of inflation? And what is that difference? But when a corporation is in trouble and it needs restructuring, and maybe that's what Lethbridge needs, is that restructuring, like Bruce is saying, find those inefficiencies, get rid of them. Reducing taxes is unlikely, but stunting them, keeping them low, or the rate of tax increase low, that might be a viable alternative. The point of it is, if we are top-heavy in our bureaucracy, then that needs to be looked at and needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Davey. Anyone else? Martin Heavyhead, you've got 30 seconds.
Yeah, when I had this question before, well, we all did, but I think my problem with it was when doing statistical analysis, you're going to get statistical outliers. So since 2006, there's been plenty of large budget projects within Lethbridge, and maybe within the other 20 municipalities, there haven't been the same amount of large budget projects. So that would throw off the statistics and make it look a certain way when perhaps those municipalities don't have the same infrastructure building that we do.
It was actually wages and benefits only is what that 06 to 15 comparison was.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Jeff Kaufman, 30 seconds for you, Jeff. Go ahead. That's your last one.
Thank you. Again, under the concept of good governance, it's very much about stewardship. As a former business owner, I knew, or I learned, that there are two ways to increase or improve your bottom line, improve your efficiency. That's not just only by raising revenues, but it's also by decreasing expenses. I think what the taxpayers of Lethbridge are looking for is that when they see their dollar go into the organization, they see where it's being spent, they see how it's being spent. And I think that's part of the challenge. It comes back to communication, as we've all been stating, but it also comes back to taking that look back, or step back and looking at the organization.
Thanks, Jeff. Anyone else? John Pogorzelski, your last one. Go ahead, John. 30 seconds.
When we're talking about wages and benefits of these other communities, are we talking about other communities with an NDP government that has raised the wages on us? I don't know where the stats are coming from, but I did look at the budget that City Council has put forward to, and I seen that our debt ceiling, the max that we can go up to was 500,000. We're only at 200,000, being below 50%. I think is pretty good. I would commend our City Council on their spending in the last 4 years. So.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? All righty. So that concludes the question and answer period. We'll have a 30-minute period for written submissions from the floor if we have questions from the floor. And if we do, we will have those brought up here at this time, if there are any. And there seems to be a few. All right.
We have a 5-minute bio break, maybe?
All right. Yeah.
These chairs are not comfortable.
Who wants a pee break? All right. Okay, we'll take a break and we'll be back in, what is it now? 7:45, how about that?
Yeah, you need it because the bathroom's a mile away.
It's just around the corner.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
So did they vet these, or?
I think they've been vetted.
Okay, that's fair enough. Hello, everyone. Let's get this show back on the road here. Please take your seats. All right, so how this is going to work, everyone, is we have a series of written questions. They'll be asked by the panel members. They came written submissions from over there. The panel members will choose which ones they want to ask, and they'll ask them. They'll be directed at a specific person or persons. Once that answer, you have 1 minute to answer. Everybody will get 2 rebuttals during this period. 30 minutes, we're going, and that's it. All right? Everybody understand? All right, yeah, 2 rebuttals. Everybody gets 2 rebuttals. Chris is happy because he only got 1 before. All righty, who's going to go first? Ange? Ladies first. Okay, Ange, and then Kristen, and then the guys. How about that? Oh, she doesn't have one. All right. Oh, she's my Vanna. That's right. Okay, Ange, the floor is yours.
So are we reading who this is to? Sorry?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Dave, considering the importance of livable business viability and need for redevelopment downtown, what initiatives would you suggest to improve our downtown?
Is it Dave? Is it Dave or Davey?
Dave.
Dave. Well.
He's absent.
We'll wait.
He's AWOL.
Next.
We'll come back.
Yeah, we'll come back.
All right.
Next.
We could take another question and go back to that, if you'd like. Steph?
I'm going to direct this at 2 people that are not currently on council. So Jennifer and Eileen, and I'm saying
Aileen,
Burke, right, in Takahashi. Aileen, sorry. See, that's why I'm no good with names.
It's a first name, Steph.
It's a first, I know, but I've been involved in a very famous name problem incident that I'm not allowed to say names. Subsidized housing, you spoke about earlier, versus affordable housing. When we subsidize a person to purchase a home, somebody has to pay for that subsidy. Under the new MGA, there's an idea of being able to charge more for other homes and taking that money and subsidizing that home so that we can have more affordable housing. Instead of subsidizing the actual person, we'll subsidize the purchase. So this is a very interesting topic for us. If we subsidize home ownership, we raise the price for everybody else. So like if you give away free tomatoes, somebody's got to pay for the other tomatoes. Is that a model that you would pursue? Or is there more of a model like transit as an example where we subsidize the ridership, not the actual purchase of the bus?
Aileen, you can go first on that one.
Great.
1 minute.
I don't know that I have an awesome answer to this question because I'm not completely versed in how either system works overly well. Based on what you've just said, that doesn't sound like a sustainable system to continue on, and it doesn't sound fair to those other home buyers who are having that cost passed along to them. I do believe that we need to look at options for affordable housing, and for right now we subsidize some housing through rent supplement. I think that those are conversations that could be had, but I don't know that going the route that you just explained is the most effective route to pursue, but it would be a conversation piece.
I really did try to keep the concept simple. I'm sorry, it is a complex subject, but I think Jennifer might.
Yeah, I don't find it overly complex. I just find it to be a really bizarre concept. You know, I'm American, which is actually kind of a fun fact. And so, you know, we do things a little differently back home. And so, you know, I lived in a multifamily dwelling that had subsidized housing specifically for low income and the equivalent of AISH. But then when you're looking at subsidizing private home ownership, it's through the name of the organization completely escapes me right now. But, you know, like everybody gets together and builds a house together thing.
Like Habitat for Humanity.
Thank you. I can't be brilliant all the time. And so I firmly do support subsidized housing in regards to rental properties. And I think that we need to be looking for new, creative, and innovative ways, whether that's subdividing, you know, the rental within multifamily dwellings or building tiny house communities like we're seeing pop up all over North America. And seeing if there aren't pathways to home ownership that way, especially in regards to tiny homes and, you know, for lack of I can't remember the polite word, but like trailer parks and, you know, like these communities like that to make it more accessible.
All right, thank you, Jen. Anybody want to rebut? All right, we do have a few. Let's start with Belinda. You got 30 seconds.
Just as I was listening to the responses, most of the subsidized people we're talking about are rentals. This is actually getting people to have a home. I don't necessarily agree with how they do it, but I think when people actually own their own home, their buy-in and their feeling about the community is much different than if they're subsidized rentals. And so I think it's actually a good thing to look at how can we get people into houses, whether the subsidized or the affordable housing is a way to go, rather than having people rent them. Because once it's rental, it's on forever. But if you own the house, that's your house, it's your community.
All right, thank you, Belinda. Davey?
If the municipality wants to be in the land development business and they want to use the profits to subsidize the purchase of homes, I'm all for it. If you're asking private industry to increase their prices on their product in order to subsidize another home for helping, you know, other citizens, like Aileen is saying, that's not right to those people who work very hard to purchase a home, which is becoming more difficult.
Thank you, Davey. Thank you. Anyone else? Shelby McLeod, 30 seconds. Shelby?
I would really like to delve into this because I agree with Belinda. When people own their home or work towards owning their own home, often they have a different attachment to the community. And we do not want to subsidize people who see it as an operations method to get to home ownership at no initial cost. I'd have to know the rules around it because we don't want to create a barrier for people who naturally would buy that home.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Harold Perversoff. Harold, you've got 30 seconds.
Thank you. Well, we're talking about fair market value in the retail of the housing. So if the individual is able to have a house subsidized and they have a lower initial cost, what happens when they turn around and sell it? They've made a huge profit in respect to the turnaround. That's not fair. And I don't support the MGA in that respect.
Thank you, Harold. Anyone else on a rebuttal? All righty. Let's go back to the original question, the first one from Ange, that was actually directed over to Dave here. You were out of the room. What's that? Oh, they've changed things up. Beautiful. All right, so who's next then? All right, Bruce.
No, not going to answer.
I'm just the figurehead apparently, so. Bruce, next question.
All right, thanks. Bear with me, I'm going to try to improve the wording of this question from the floor.
Will this take a long time, Bruce?
Well, you know, now that I have the mic,
Oh.
now that I don't actually have to read.
Hi, Bruce's mom.
Yeah, hi, Mom. Well, Dad. Some large numbers were quoted for money made in residential land development. And this is a two-part question. The first question is, why doesn't the city provide a financial report and report on earnings for city land development? And the second one is, if money is the motivator for being in business, in the land development business, residential land development business, then is it okay for the city to pursue other for-profit opportunities and compete with business in other areas? That question is to Ryan Parker and Chris Spearman.
Ryan, you get your 1 minute.
Thank you very much. The City of Lethbridge and City Council as a whole are the board of directors for Lethbridge Land. And just like any other corporation, when they're doing land sales, it's probably very important strategically not to have our conversations in public. 3 issues can only be discussed in camera: land, labor, and legal. This goes under the category of land. So of course, we're not going to disclose the profits or the revenues or the costs that we have, because just like any other corporation who's in the land development business, they would not show their cards. Now, we are in the land business, not just to generate money, but to generate growth in our community, to make sure what we have when we develop the crossings, that there's a new school. When we develop Legacy Park, we use the funds from that to help offset those costs. Like I stated earlier, if we didn't do that, it would come through the tax base, which is the tax pressure. So it's always going to be a contentious issue, but at this time, compared to all the other municipalities, Lethbridge land only makes up 20% of the market in our community, whereas other
That's it.
municipalities.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Chris Spearman, you have 1 minute.
I'd like to explore the issue a little further and actually do some comparisons. And I think what we need, there's been some surprising numbers reported tonight, and I think we need to do studies together. I agree with Ryan. The numbers we get indicate that other cities like Medicine Hat is 90% in the land business, Red Deer is 35% in the land business, Lethbridge is 20% in the land business. So where our numbers differ, we have to sit down and discuss what those differences are. We need to have good information that we can share together before we make any radical changes. And we do have to look at what we do with any funds that the city makes from the land. If we're doing something to compete with the private sector, that's one thing. If we're doing something to enhance a public good, that's something different. So we need to discuss how the funds are used as well as the source of the data. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any rebuttals? Jeff Kaufman, 30 seconds, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Actually, I think one of the things that the new council needs to do, one of the first things is sit and have the public conversation. Should the city of Lethbridge be in the business of residential land development? It would be a very uncomfortable conversation, but you know what? Sometimes out of uncomfortable conversations, you find a clear understanding, you determine the purpose, you determine if the original purpose is actually still valid. One of the other things I'd like to see council do is establish a land strategy standing committee, which would be tasked to overseeing the city's involvement in property transactions, public policies, and standards, which the organization's land holdings are managed by administration. It's oversight.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else? Yep, Bill Ginther, you got 30 seconds, Bill.
I admit to not fully understanding how the Lethbridge land works and the 20% being in the land business. But I do feel strongly that any profit should be revealed. I think financial statements are of vital importance to those that are members of the city, or I should say citizens of the city. Transparency and accountability are vitally important. I spent most of my adult life in the nonprofit sector. I always encourage people.
Thank you, Bill.
To,
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else want to rebut on this question? Oh, go ahead, Steph.
Medicine Hat was quoted as being in the land development business. It's one of the poorest run cities in the province as far as land development is concerned. They might do 40 permits this year, same size city. Going beyond that, Genstar, Brookfield, Dream, three of the largest land developers in Canada are public and report their earnings publicly every year. There's no shame in the earnings. So if you can quote how much money you actually spend on all these great projects, it should be very easy to take that out of camera and bring it into the public realm of how much money is actually made. So I just want to make sure that we're talking fairly about these numbers.
All right. Liz Owasku. Liz, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I just want to say that I can't remember if it was the last election or the one before, either 2010 or 2014, but the relationship between you guys and council was bad, and we worked really hard to have a bunch of meetings and bring people together. I'm getting the sense that we're going off the rails again, and if that's the case, I really think that we should go back to where we were and start again. And if it's not that bad, let's do it before it does get that bad.
Thanks, Liz. Davey, last rebut.
Accountability. This is what it's all about. I mean, first off, if the city of Lethbridge is a corporation, its citizens are its shareholders, and it's the corporation is accountable to its shareholders. So, as a shareholder in various corporations, I get financial statements because if I don't invest in the corporation. It's pretty simple as that. So the idea that we would hide information from our citizens is, I'm sorry, it's absolutely ludicrous. That will
Thanks,
not
Dave.
happen.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, next question then. Angela?
Finally get the mic again. This one's for Dave. Considering the importance of livable and business viability and the need for redevelopment downtown, what initiatives would you suggest to improve our downtown?
1
That's
minute,
a good
Dave.
question. I think on the accountability survey, I might have articulated it better than off the top of my head, so I'm going to have a look. Economic development, clearly. Attempt to ensure that premium tax generation locations in the downtown area are used to attract businesses over civic or non-tax generating organizations. The latter definitely have a place in the downtown. However, our priority should be to attract businesses to high-value locations. Attempt to create a different community mindset regarding the downtown. As I said before, work on treating that place like we would our schoolyards or our residential communities. Currently, I don't believe it's viewed that way. The expectation is lower. Focus on safety, create an environment that attracts and welcomes community, businesses, and tourism. If the mindset changes, the downtown becomes a community hub.
Thanks, Dave. Any rebuts? Let's go first with John Pogorzelski, then over to Rob Mashiro. John, 30 seconds.
Currently, we have two organizations that are kind of focused on the downtown BRZ and the Heart of Our City. I know the Heart of Our City right now is a HOCHIP program, which is an incentive program for people to invest into residential dwellings. I'm not 100% sure if they have one specifically for business. If not, they should get one. And if they do, just expand upon it because it's not currently working the best right now. So.
Thanks, John. Rob Mashiro, 30 seconds, Rob.
So as John said, HOCHIP is a housing incentive program that the city will pay actually developers to build residential residences. And we also have the targeted redevelopment incentive policy where we look at some mitigation of taxes over time for different values of development. So together with those two, if we can build the business, we can build residential, it'll help to develop downtown.
Thanks, Rob. Anyone else? Alrighty. Next question. Mike?
Okay, so here's a softball question. And we're gonna throw it at some folks that I personally know have some experience in this. So this is gonna go out to Nick Palladino, Rob Miyashiro, and Jeffrey Kaufman. The land use bylaw and city processes seem to severely limit innovation and creativity in residential and commercial development. How would you amend the land use bylaw to encourage greater diversity in development? And we'll start with Nick.
1 minute, Nick.
How would I amend the land use bylaw to, sorry.
That's all right. Land use bylaw and city processes seem to severely limit innovation and creativity in residential and commercial development. How would you amend the land use bylaw to encourage greater diversity in development?
It's a good question. It's not a softball question.
Oh, it's a softball.
What I would do is, land use bylaws should be reviewed every 5 years or so anyway. So I don't know when the last one the city did, but I bet you it's 5 years or so. So the first thing you do is you initiate a review of the land use bylaw, and you get your builders together and your developers, and you come up with these ideas. And I don't have one on the top of my head right now, but that's what I would do. I would initiate our land use bylaw review.
Thanks, Nick. Rob Miyashiro.
I mentioned earlier that one of the things that we're working on right now is a new zoning for residential. And it'll be very innovative when it finally comes on the books. It'll create interest. It'll create actually international interest in a way to do a residence in a residential in a different way. We look at amendments to the land use bylaw all the time. And there's small amendments that we make for different areas. We made amendments to allow for secondary suites on certain size lots in certain kind of developments. They have to be certain size lots, certain location within the subdivision. So we are making these short, small amendments all the time without having to blow up the entire land use. The land use development bylaw is this thick, and this is not a word of a lie. You can't redo that whole bylaw on its own. So as we're looking at different parts of it, we can make sure that it makes more sense to all of us.
Thanks, Rob. Jeff Kaufman. 1 minute, Jeff.
Thank you for the question. Of course, the Community Design Committee work through that has pushed towards a new residential district, and that's been in partnership with CHBA and UDI, of course. Amend the barriers. I've talked a little bit about the barriers to solar and wind, microgen, stuff like that. Those barriers exist in the land use bylaw. They need to be done. Again, some of it is infrastructure design. some of the land use bylaw actually has components of it regarding infrastructure that prohibits or inhibits developers from doing the things that they need to do. Tiny homes, we don't address that in the land use bylaw. That's something that's coming to the community. We need to actually have more of an active conversation about it. One of the bigger things, though, is amend the interpretation. The new paradigm of building, new partnerships actually require new bylaws, but you also have to amend the way that the staff apply those, the way that they look at those. Again, taking that step back, opening the mind, opening the approach to what is being done, how it's being done, and making certain that we're open and accessible to new design.
Thank you, Jeff. Any rebuttals to the question? All right, I see none. All right, panel, who's up next? Steph?
Jump in here. Liz, I want to make a statement. It's not off the rails. We could come in here and ask you what color trees are and they're green, right? They're not safe questions. We did take a little different tack this time. They're a little more aggressive questions. But I want to point out that we've had a great relationship. I do business in 7 municipalities across Western Canada, and we have the best service standards and building permits anywhere that I deal with. So they're not off the rails. We had I participated with Rob on the new urban development zoning bylaw, and I tell you, mixed use sounds great till you're the guy that lives above the pizza place and you have to smell pizzas all day, or you live next door to the rental property. And so there's a lot of challenges around it, but we're working really aggressively on doing that, and you've included us, and we really appreciate that. So a little more hardball today, but it was planned to be that way, and we're not going to let you off easy, so thank you, but the relationship still remains. Okay? I am passionate about what I do. I love this industry, I love building homes, and I'll build whatever my clients tell me they want. Most times they want a 1,500 square foot bungalow with 3 bedrooms on a 60-foot lot for $199,900. Okay? But then we have the issue of urban sprawl.
Can you do that?
Come see me, we have a program. I need subsidies. But Jennifer and Zachary, what is your opinion on urban sprawl versus urban densification? And we throw this at you on purpose, but what is your opinion on urban sprawl versus urban densification?
Jen Takahashi, 1 minute.
I'm a huge supporter of urban growth boundaries. I think it's not only good stewardship for our environment and our land, but I think it also protects the farming community that is part of what protects us when there's economic downturn, and provides that farming space or that land so that we can grow green energy and solar and wind production. And so if we're going to protect this, if we're going to be good stewards to our environment and to business, we have to grow up. You might not want to live on top of a pizza place, but I do. And I feel like Joey over here does too, right? And so, everybody has a different opinion of what looks like a good home to us. I personally am not interested in owning a home. I like the nomadic abilities of being able to go from my apartment to a tiny home to, the pizzeria upstairs from that. And especially with so many students here, it is very important that we are offering, fun places and diverse alternatives in housing. Thank you.
I have never turned down a pizza.
Zach.
I'll invite you over when they build it.
No, you're on.
1 minute, Zach.
Thank you very much. That is a very good question. Now, as the city continues to grow, it is important that we do keep growing out. We have plenty of space around us, and it is important to continue on growing outwards. Any city that has the space should do that. At the same time, we do have to look at new ways to densify our downtown core and to add new buildings and affordable housing options to increase the density in our city center, because we want a downtown that we can be proud of. And we also want a city that continues to grow and expand and offers solutions for everybody. And it is important that as we grow out, we make smart investments and we make sure that the infrastructure is there before we move out. Quite oftentimes you'll see the crossings is a great example. They're ripping out the road that should have been twinned, in my opinion, in the first place, to support the growth before the growth occurs. And things like that, those smart initial investments when planning urban sprawl is important, including, in addition to densifying the downtown, will continue to grow at an extraordinary pace both ways, and it's important to do both of those things.
All right, thank you, Zach. Rebuttals, couple. Let's go with Harold Perversoff first. Your last one, Harold.
That's correct. Thank you. With respect to the urban sprawl, I think the city has actually been responsible for the sprawl that we have currently in Lethbridge. With advancing in the boundaries, you put stress on the infrastructure. You put stress on public services, the availability for fire, police to monitor. Paradise Canyon, for example, still don't have bus services or, plowing and all this kind of stuff. And so, no, I'm not in favor of the urban sprawl at all. I'm certainly in favor of the density of the residential and businesses as well.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you. Let's go with Stephanie Watson. 30 seconds.
Great. Urban sprawl, it's a huge issue in Canada. We tend to build out instead of up, and that is not good for the environment. It's not good for our farming communities. We have to definitely increase our density, especially if we want to see a better transit system and connectivity. But to do that, we need the political will to actually build the density, and we need the developers' help in planning the solutions for the areas we'd have to go into.
Thank you very much. Dave McCulloch.
I like the comment about building what your clients want, and I think about a demographic that is growing, which is retiring baby boomers who want to downsize, but they're not ready to move into a seniors setting. And I think there's plenty of opportunity that isn't sprawling, that it has to do with density that might work out really well with that demographic.
Alrighty, we got a couple more, I believe. I got rebuttals all over the place. Let's go, Mark Campbell. 30 seconds, Mark.
Well, if you don't mind, I just want to turn the tables on you guys. Is there an ethic that you have as far as urban sprawl goes, or do you care? There, I'm just trying to find out stuff.
Wow, this is cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good for me to.
I guess we are, yeah.
You got 30 seconds, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And if he'll hit you.
Really cool. The city has this great program, the 100K plus program, and they came out and they talked to us about densification. It was a great discussion, really great discussion. Density around the university, around the hospital, around the college, around the power center down south. Great discussions around that, but it doesn't have to be densification around every development. Those are great places to do densification.
10 seconds.
Get it? Yes.
The city of Lethbridge actually has some of the best density in residential single-family lots of any city in Alberta. I would challenge that Riverstone doesn't have a single multifamily spot in it, and that's something the city needs to take responsibility in. Having said that, when they did try to do one, the neighbors said no. So there are huge challenges around densification. We will build whatever you want. All right? I get paid per square foot, not per yard.
Thanks for that. It's good to know.
All right, who else? We got a couple more. Let's go first with Clint. 30 seconds.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say that if we are looking at urban sprawl, we're going to be killing our downtown core, because as we move further out, there's less likelihood for people to move towards the middle. If we look at densification in areas such as our downtown core, then they will still be able to fan out from there to businesses and people around the city.
Thank you. Robert Jansen, 30 seconds.
I'd like to make a comment about the bylaw building. This big country, why are they building the houses so close together? In Europe, which is, okay, you can fit Germany twice in Alberta. After the Allies bombed Germany, they built it wider. I mean, why they build the houses so close together?
Thank you. Let's go Bill Ginther.
I'm going to give the safe response. We need both. I happen to live downtown and really like it. We have a very small yard, and a family that had, for example, 4 children would not be satisfied with that yard. There's also only so much room downtown. I support downtown in every way, but we do need to build on the outskirts. We don't want to get too big, but we need to have proper places for young families to grow.
Thank you, Bill. Who else? John Pogrzelski, 30 seconds.
I'm actually using my rebuttal much more like Mr. Carlson did to apologize to everyone. I have to leave. We have DJ NDN from A Tribe Called Red at my bar tonight. I was supposed to be there at 8. It is now 8:20, so I do have to take off. I apologize, but thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, John. Any other rebuttals? Shelby.
I have a question that follows up on Zach. How cost efficient have we been on the road going to the ATB Center? That road is torn up. I feel sorry for those folks that live up there. It's in, it's out, and I travel down Métis Trail today. It's a great road, but we need to go further. So I'm not sure whose problem it is. So that's my question is, can we have better planning at the outset when we're putting in a major facility like the ATP Center?
All right.
No, I'm done.
I think it's an open-ended question, just for someone to ponder down the line.
You don't have to answer it today.
No, gotcha. We gotcha. We got one more question before we wrap things up here.
Well, you know, it's going to be along the
Well, yeah, well, sorry, we have one more rebuttal to the last one. My apologies. Kevin?
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No worries.
A while ago, actually, I've been a part of 2 different tests where we used a clicker, and they showed us different types of house, of which type we approved, whether it was a small dwelling or a big dwelling, apartment, what we wanted to see built in Lethbridge. The bigger apartments or the bigger houses or the duplexes or whatnot, nobody wanted them. In all the percentages, nobody wanted them. Everybody that took the test preferred the single dwellings, the single family houses.
Thank you, Kevin. Your time is up. Anyone else? If not, we'll go to our final question. Okay.
Okay, we're gonna stay on the same path that Mark set us on. So really, this last question is to ask you folks. We'll pick a couple of folks, but ask you what you want to see from home builders and developers to see what kind of vision that we'd have for growth in the city of Lethbridge. So the 2 people that I picked are Bruce Thurber and Blaine Higgin.
Okay, Bruce, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. That's a great question.
Whoever has rebuttals, you might as well use them up now.
That's right. That's a great question and a great question to finish off the night. I want to see a council moving forward that opens the doors to innovation and sort of challenging the status quo. I look at some of the subdivisions on the west side, and I'm going, you know what? And through MPC, we see this. We're getting similar stuff, and that's a restriction over the land use bylaw and a lot of the policy and governance that's in place right now. But I would like to see those doors open a lot, and let's get further, let's get more creative. What do you guys want to do that you haven't done because of the restrictions in policy now? And let's open it up. Kind of building on the last question is, yes, we need to provide a market for sort of all things for all people. There will be people that want this and want that, and I want to see that continue. It's important. It's part of the economic drivers. But I think we're just scratching the surface on some of the really neat stuff that we can do. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Bruce. Blaine, 1 minute. We're actually going to have one more question after this, I was told, so I lied.
Curveballs. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not a builder. I run photocopies. You guys know from people that come to you what they want to build. Bring to us. I mean, I'd love to see some innovative ideas and some environmentally smart ideas and different cost savings ways to build a home. But as far as looks and design and stuff like that, you guys have done such a great job. I can't even add to that. It's something that you guys, what you've done is, as far as I'm concerned, is a good job, and keep doing what you're doing.
Okay, we have a few rebuttals. Raymond, go ahead. Blaine, can you give him the microphone, please? Thank you. 30 seconds, Raymond.
This is exactly yours. We talked about it before, who were the stakeholders or whatever. It's the end users. It is, you guys are selling houses to people. If you build something they don't want, you aren't going to sell them. So you're not going to build something that you don't want. Looking to us, or I think you make a mistake when you're looking to the city to be innovative, creative, and to provide you anything. We need to be working with you guys. It's you guys' dreams, because you guys are working with the people who are going to put the money.
Thank you, Raymond. Jen? Go ahead.
I'm happy to say. I would love to see a commitment to developing livable and walkable communities. I want to know that everywhere I live, my kid and I can walk for coffee, he can ride his bike to the Slurpee, and I don't have to get in my car to go grocery shopping. And I would also like to see further development, looking at these tiny house communities, looking at multifamily mixed-use dwellings, and just really seeing that vision for the future of Lethbridge and being the ones who are driving all of the exciting things we can do. Thank you.
Joey Shackelford.
Well, this is to Steph or anybody up on the panel. First of all, thanks very much. It's been a great evening. But I was just reading an article in the Toronto Globe and Mail the other day about innovative building ideas. And one of them that kind of struck me was what he called shipping container construction. It seemed to be interesting. You know, a three-story apartment building that would take 18 months, they could do in 6 months. Is there any, you know, ideas of that, you know, used in southern Alberta? And the one they quoted was actually a guy building in Edmonton, so I don't know if you knew about it or knew of this person.
Thank you. Joey, that's awesome that you brought that up, and just because you asked the question, two of the biggest home builders in Alberta are actually right here in Lethbridge. That'd be Triple M Housing and SRI, and they actually do exactly what you just said. They do a lot of buildings and not just in Alberta, but they do modular, compartmentalized, multifamily housing as well as single family. It's quite amazing what those two facilities do, and they're right here in Lethbridge. Employ a lot of people. Great question.
Who else? Let's go with Belinda and then Dave. 30 seconds, Belinda.
I think I want what you guys want. I want beautiful, well-crafted buildings. We know psychologically and socially that our buildings and our neighborhoods help create our personal and our community identities. And I want to be part of that discussion about building for tomorrow's history.
Okay, thank you, Belinda. Let's go with Dave.
I kind of brought this forward last night at the chamber thing as well. It's not about building houses, it's about building things that will bring economic development. And when we have a major development like the ATB Center and the Field House, it's my belief that you should build things that will generate tax revenue, so businesses and all those things that surround those. Don't build those big structures in a bubble. Generate as much tax income from businesses as was the cost of the project in the first place. I think it's really healthy to think that way.
Dave, thank you. Rob?
One of the things that we can do moving forward is aspire to the World Health Organization's guidelines for age-friendly communities. It's eight factors that you look at building a community friendly for all ages, not just seniors, not just young people, but you build it so that it's walkable. You build it so the transportation's there. You build it so you engage the community. If we can aspire to that, it also attracts industry and investment.
Thank you, Rob. Anyone else? Zach?
Well, as we grow, it is important that we do take environmental concerns into effect. So when we're building new houses, we're going to want to make sure that we have the most opportunities with solar and energy efficient things, and looking into yards and the amount of water that we use. So we should look into maybe using less grass and more like xeriscape type things, in addition to high efficiency appliances and LED technology within the homes themselves, in order to make a sustainable environment for the future of Lethbridge.
All right, one more rebuttal, and then we are going to move on to the final question, and that goes to Stephanie.
One of the things I studied in the environmental science was the green buildings and stuff in regards to the shipping containers, earth ships, solar paneled roofs, stuff like this. One of the parts I love about living in Copperwood is that it's a walkable community and it's high density as well. So I'd like to see that improved and encouraged and the housing built for that stuff, and I'd hope you guys have lots of ideas on that. So.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. Okay, last question, and we'll let Angela wrap that up for us.
So a lot of the conversations tonight is about partnership and collaboration. And so Martin Heavyhead, this one is for you. As a member of Blood Tribe, as mayor, what can you do to convince chief and council to supporting Aboriginal organizations who provide services to band members in Lethbridge?
Martin?
There already is Treaty 7 housing that goes on within the city, but traditionally or historically, the relationship between Blood Tribe is between Blood Tribe and the Crown, and not the province and not the municipality. So I believe it's been within the last year that the first council-to-council meeting has happened, and that's well over 136, 137 years since colonization, since signing the treaty, that there ever has been that. So, I mean, seeing that there's mutual interest, there has to be there has to be a relationship built not only between Blood Tribe and Lethbridge, but all the surrounding towns and farmers, people around, because that relationship has been seriously lacking where y'all know almost nothing about us, but we know everything about you.
Well, I don't know if there's a way to finish off better than that. Chris, do you have the rebuttal?
Well, I think we have to recognize that housing is a big issue for our Indigenous people. And rather than think of it as a challenge, we need to think about it as an opportunity. And we need to make sure when people have housing, they can access employment and they can access education. And that's one of the ways that we can move forward to solve social issues in our city. So we need to work together, and I think it's a great step forward that we're meeting with the council and meeting with the urban Indigenous community.
Thank you, Chris.
Steph,
you want to say something there?
Not just in housing, but we need labor to build our housing. And we recognize that the Blood Tribe has many young people that are unemployed, and we need to work on systems of transportation and the ability to come into our city and work on housing and train people that are definitely employable inside our community. And I don't know if you want to add any comment to that, but please.
One of my pals, Lauren Crazybull, was having trouble finding a job, so she put out her resume as it was and got no callbacks, and then she changed her last name to the whitest white girl sounding name that she could find. She changed it to Lauren Brooke, and the calls flooded in. So it's not necessarily from a lack of willingness, it's at times nobody wants to hire Native people, and there's that because of these long-standing biases that exist within certain communities. But I would also like to add to what you were saying there, but maybe I'll have to use a rebuttal later.
Robert?
Okay, I'd like to make a comment about Aboriginal housing. Okay, like I said one before that, the natives were here before us. Okay, way before us. Okay, okay, my wife, maybe Mr. Spearman was born here, but really they were here first. Now, this is my plan. If I had enough money, okay, I would build every native their own house, tax-free.
Thank you. Martin?
Reserves and reserve systems are run off of the resource revenues taken off of the reserve and not from taxpayer money. So there's this long-standing mythology that the taxpayers are paying for the reserves when really we're begging for our own money back from the federal government, from the Crown. So perhaps something that can be done within the municipality is to maybe ignore the province on this one and work with the municipality to go through INAC, who is, pretty well has the legislation defining what an Indian is under the Indian Act. So if you have legislation that says like the Jewish Act that tells you what a Jewish person is and how they operate legally, that would be pretty fishy, but we have that with the Indian Act. It's a method of control to keep us under the Crown's thumb. So if we could work together in order to establish a better working relationship, but also to establish, less oppression, then that would be good for everybody, I think.
Thank you. All right, Shelby's got a rebuttal.
I think we have an opportunity. What we've just heard is a dialogue between many different people. And I think that the home builders, the city council, everyone in this room has learned something tonight. And I think we're going to come together and do great things on housing because there are people there that need support and need housing.
Thank you, Shelby. Harold Perversive.
Some communities, like for example Saskatoon, have taken this a step further with respect to the Indian Act and the situation what they have in the natives in that community. And they've actually gone to urban reserves in the city of Saskatoon. I used to live in Saskatoon, and I know very well they're very functional. They're very they're fitting a need in that community, and that may be something we could consider down the road.
Thank you, Harold. Ross Morrell.
I just have to use up my rebuttal here.
Sure.
I'm just going to say that if you're looking for a council member with vision, a council member that'll work with you, a council member that'll fight for you, vote Ross Morrell.
Nice.
I think we'll close on that one.
We could have 29 more rebuttals.
Yeah, because I have control of it now. All right, so we'll call up Kristen here. Bruce is going to close her up here.
No, I'm not going to steal your thunder, but I did want to say, you know, we threw some real hard questions out there, came from our membership. We have a diverse background in our membership that has different views, and I think and I hope that it was helpful in creating a debate. And I thought it, you know, was very good, and I thought everybody did a good job here. I want to make sure that no matter how the election turns out, that you know that we have a very good relationship in our industry with the city compared to other areas. Steph talked to that earlier, and it's very much true, and we want to keep that. It hasn't always been that way in the past, as Liz pointed out, and we've made some good progress, and I want to make sure that we keep doing that. And also to know for this audience and maybe beyond is that the home building industry, the land development industry is constantly innovating. We got a lot of passion there, and we're always looking for ways to be more environmentally friendly, more design innovations, more development innovations. And we're working with the city. We're kind of tied to the hip with the city. Everything's regulated. Everything needs approval, and it's a together kind of organization. So thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. And I'll call up Kristen here to wrap it all up for us tonight.
I just want to say thank you to all of the candidates for participating this evening and giving up your time with your families. We really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody else who came out tonight. I know everybody's itching to get out of here and it's gone a little bit long, but I just want to take a minute to recognize a few people. First of all, thank you to our panel and our moderator. You did a wonderful job this evening. You only went rogue on me a couple of times, so I'll forgive you for that. I would also like to thank Bonnie Ferries and Jen Schmidt-Rempel, who volunteered their time tonight to come out and help vet some questions for us. I'd also like to thank the Lethbridge College and their staff for allowing us to use this space for their event and helping get everything set up and providing the refreshments this evening, and again, staying late. We really appreciate the help. And last but not least, a big thank you to our CHBA staff, Rebecca and Hannah, for all their work preparing everything for tonight. We really appreciate it, ladies. I hope that you all found the information exchanged this evening valuable and that will help you to make an informed decision at the polls. If you're looking for any additional information, please visit lethbridgeaccountability.ca. It contains a survey that the candidates have completed with questions from local organizations. Remember, voting day is on October 16th. Get out and vote. Have a great evening.